Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're having yet another great late night chat. Glad to have you all here with me tonight. We're going to get started. Let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation. It's going to be good. We're going to follow our normal format, which is first I give my opening remarks, and then from there we do the roll call, and I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. And then from there, I answer your questions for the remainder of the night. So if there's something that you would like me to touch on in the second half of our show, all you need to do is go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin and send your question. And you can also do super chats now because we're monetized again. Super chats work on this channel again, so you can send super chats. Those are very, very appreciated. If we get 10 super chats, I will play the new China song. That's a favorite of many people in the chat, and that'll be our celebration of getting 10 super chats if we get 10 super chats. But buy me a coffee is still the best way to send your questions. But anyhow, a lot of great things are happening. The Center for Political Innovation, that's the organization that this is all about, the group that we are building to promote anti-imperialism in America. And we have an exciting announcement, which is on August 14th. We are having a rally in Chicago. I mentioned it last night. We now have the official announcement up on the website. France out of Africa. Stand with the Union of Sahel States, AES. We're at the French consulate in Chicago. It's going to be an important rally. We are reaching out to all of our friends and allies. We want to make this a coalition effort and a massive demonstration to stand with the African people in their struggle against colonialism. It's a very, very exciting effort, and we've been putting it together and thinking about it, but now we made the official call today, and that will happen in Chicago, August 14th at the French consulate in downtown Chicago. Very, very exciting. So that's our big call. The link on the website is there. Very, very exciting. The other thing that we are doing currently is we are in the process. I mean, that event will happen as part of our national 7-day training program. We're going to be in Chicago, and our national convention will be on the 15th. We're going to have a nice Q&A friendly session the following day. We're doing a lot in Chicago that week, and that's the week of our national 7-day training program, where we will be gathering in Chicago for 7 days to build our organization and train people in anti-imperialist activism, how to organize, how to build. We are an important organization opposing U.S. wars, and it's really great. So if you could register for the 7-day program, if you're planning to join us, if you're a CPI member, or if you're somebody who's interested in learning more about our organization, please register and come and join us in Chicago for the 7-day program. Very exciting. Now, just one final announcement. I know these are a lot of announcements before we get down to what we're going to talk about. I am going on the road in July. I am traveling. And if you are in one of the 3 cities I'm headed to, please come see us. We're going to have a great event. I will be in New York City. I live here, so I'm not really traveling. New York City, July 2nd. We're having a great event. It'll be great. It'll be an evening dinner with speeches, music, and everything. On July 18th, I'll be in Minneapolis. So we're working out that event. Come join us. And in Los Angeles, I'll be in LA on July 11th. This is a tour I'm doing for the anniversary of the American Revolution called Finish the American Revolution, End the British Empire System and Its Wars. Very, very exciting. That's our CPI project that we've got going on in the lead up to our Chicago activities in August. The other thing I wanted to mention is I will be in Atlanta, Georgia for the Uhuru movement. They are having their appeal in federal court against the Foreign Agents Registration Act and what they're up against. I plan to be there as well. So a lot is going on. July and August are going to be big months for our very, very important anti-imperialist organization. The Center for Political Innovation is where it's at. We are building an anti-imperialist movement, and we're proud of what we're doing. We are America's anti-imperialist movement. You should get involved. We've been in the streets opposing the war with Iran. We protested outside the jail where Maduro is being held. We've been distributing books about the Houthis all across America. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. That's us. We are the Center for Political Innovation, and we are moving ahead. We have so many exciting plans. We just had a great meeting this afternoon, our weekly membership meeting. It was great. So join the Center for Political Innovation. Become a member today. Register for the 7-day training program to be accredited as a member, or if you're just interested. We got a lot of great, exciting activities coming up. So yeah, I just wanted to get all of that out of the way. Before we start, CPI is where it's at. Much love to our whole community. We got a lot of great people in our organization. We're very, very dedicated. So I guess just a quick reminder, if you have any questions for the second half of our show, the best way to send them is to go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin and send your questions. And you can now, we are remonetized. You can do super chats as well. But give me something to talk about in the second half of the show, right? Make it exciting, the second half of the show. If you're watching later, you can send Buy Me a Coffee after this. You can just go to Buy Me a Coffee and I'll answer it on the next stream. But give me something to talk about in the second half of the show, right? It is you guys who make the second half of the show what it is. And super chats are appreciated as well. But all right, so tonight we're talking about Jimmy Dore. Now, Jimmy Dore is amazing. Jimmy Dore is just an amazing, amazing person. Has taken so many heroic stances. I have been a Jimmy Dore fan for years, and I have seen him stick to his principles around force the vote, around opposing war. And yesterday, an episode of the Tucker Carlson show with Jimmy Dore came out. And there were so many great segments. I was watching it for the second time this afternoon and just absorbing everything. And I wrote down different segments from the show I wanted to talk about. And then I realized I was writing like every segment down. And so I would recommend you just go watch it yourself because he just talks about so much. But we're going to show highlights from it tonight. But, there's so much. I mean, he talked about his appreciation for Carl Jung and the importance of dreams. That was pretty amazing. I mean, he talked about the DNC. He talked about ivermectin and all of that. I mean, there was just so much in the interview. I don't know where to begin. But yeah, we're going to show a few highlights tonight that are particularly related to our anti-imperialist work as the Center for Political Innovation. So buckle in. We're going to show a couple segments from Jimmy Dore and his interview with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's amazing. Tucker Carlson, I remember when he was just kind of a conservative jerk on Fox News, but then he opposed the wars, and then he supported Uhuru, and then he went to Russia and interviewed Putin. And I mean, Tucker Carlson has gone in a really, really good direction. And Jimmy Dore is somebody we've loved for a long time. He's a working class guy from Chicago who loves labor unions and is critical of the deep state and their wars. He was with the Young Turks for a long time ago. And when they started selling out and becoming mainstream liberals after the primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. He went rogue and did his own thing and has been doing a great job ever since. And, you know, it's really an honor. Jimmy Dore has been friendly to me. I've been on his show a few times, and he's hung out with CPI. He invited CPI to one of his comedy shows, and we got to hang out with him in the dressing room. That was very cool. Jimmy Dore is just a great guy all around. So many, many great moments in this interview. We're going to start out with anti-war stuff. This is when he talked about anti-war stuff.
Of the military industrial, again, you don't get a $35 million contract. This is what you got for telling the truth. You know, Tucker, I use you as an example all the time. You know, you don't get fired for lying. He got fired when he started to tell the truth about the neocons and the military industrial complex, the Syrian war, which is when you and I first connected, because we were the two people telling the truth.
You were the only other person. And I thought, am I going insane? There's no evidence that this happened. I don't even know Assad. I didn't have strong feelings about Assad. He's certainly better than what we have now in Syria. But I was just like, this just seems as like a reporting matter, like a lie. And you were the only other person saying that. The only other person.
I remember doing a video and I said, boy, if it comes down to me and Tucker telling the truth about this, we're screwed.
I know.
And of course we are screwed because now Al-Qaeda runs Syria.
Exactly.
Exactly as I predicted, exactly as Tulsi Gabbard predicted.
I know. That
if you get rid of Assad, who's going to take over? Al-Qaeda or ISIS, by the way, which we're funding and probably created. So, and isn't it interesting that ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the sworn enemies of Israel, never attack Israel? Isn't that interesting?
It is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's almost like they invented them for a purpose. People don't care. I talk about this. People don't care, especially my ex-friends in Hollywood. They have no idea about any of this stuff. They don't know that so they see a guy who's running Syria now, and he's got a blue Brooks Brothers suit on, and he's meeting with the president, and he's meeting with Petraeus. He's over at Downing Street, and they're like, "Yeah, he's our guy." I'm like, you know, he's the former head chopper from Syria, from Al Qaeda, right? Like, huh? What? I don't know. They all look like Kash Patel. I don't know what's going on, you know. So
it's funny. Even the Gulf Arabs, when Jelani took over Syria, they were more uncomfortable than our State Department. Our State Department was like, yeah, okay, it's totally fine because the Israelis wanted it. But even the Gulf Arabs were like, ooh, this guy's pretty scary. Like, really, we going with this?
And Gaddafi predicted all this, and that's why they had to kill him too. Oh yeah, he predicted. He gave a speech at the Arab League where he talked about, you don't think they're going to come for you next? They're coming for you. And they did, and they came for him because, well, he was a threat to the petrodollar because he was going to create the dinar, right? And the most successful country in all of Africa, and he was going to unite Africa, and they can't have that because they want to go in there. As Michael Parenti says, it's not a poor continent; it's a very rich continent, and they just keep the people poor so we can extract all their resources, which is what they do. And so he was going to unite the people of Africa, and they can't have that because that would be a threat to the euro, it'd be a threat to the U.S. dollar, and so that's why he had to go. Plus, he said, if you get rid of me, they're going to flood Western Europe. He thought he was safe because if they got rid of him, then all the refugees would go flood. But it turns out that's exactly what they wanted.
Exactly.
And why do they want that? They want that because they want you hating your neighbor. They want you to be afraid of your neighbor and fighting. So just like in the United States, why did they have open borders? And I'm very pro-immigrant, but the reason why they want to flood the country by the way, Bernie Sanders used to be against open borders,
of course,
and he would say it's a Koch brothers scam,
of course,
and of course
to lower wages,
lower wages, and then keeping poor workers fighting against even poorer, more desperate people.
Exactly.
Instead of coming together, realizing your common interests and fighting against the oligarchy. And what I tell people is, if you find yourself angry at someone lower on the economic ladder than you, pretty good chance you're being manipulated by someone higher on the economic ladder than you. And so that's why I say, don't blame the immigrant, because you would do exactly what they're doing.
I agree completely.
Yeah, that is awesome. He said so much there that is so amazing. First of all, folks, what he said about the Green Book, or about Gaddafi, the first book the Center for Political Innovation ever published was the Green Book, Gaddafi's manifesto, Gaddafi's book of political teachings. And we published that for a reason, because CPI traces its origins back to the Libyan War. 2011, Occupy Wall Street was happening. I was an Occupy Wall Street activist. I was a spokesperson for Ramsey Clark, the former U.S. Attorney General. And Libya was being bombed and destroyed by NATO. And all the communists and leftists supported it. And they didn't do anything about it. And I investigated Libya, and I read their green book. And I said, Libya is a socialist country, and we need to be, shutting down Grand Central. We need to be having civil disobediences. We need to be fighting for Libya. And even the communist group I was in that kind of supported Gaddafi didn't do anything. And they spent more time trying to convince me that Libya wasn't a real socialist country because they weren't, Marxist-Leninist and they believed in God, than they did actually opposing the war. And it was outrageous. And I was very angry about it. And so, to make a point, the very first CPI book we ever published, and shout out to Gavin, who worked really hard on the graphics. Gavin has been with us ever since, we started. He was with us, Students and Youth for a New America Club, even before then. The very first book we published was Gaddafi's Green Book. Gaddafi had built the world's largest irrigation system, the Great Man-Made River. And he was greening the desert of North Africa. Gaddafi had the highest life expectancy on the African continent. And he also, regarding the refugee crisis, he had a policy that any African could come to Libya and automatically be given a job. And at that point, you remember the oil prices were the highest in history they'd ever been, $120 a barrel because of the U.S. invasion of Iraq. And, oil prices were very high. And Libya had so much money, and they were talking about creating an independent African bank and an African currency, the golden dinar. And they were going to have an African development bank centered around Libya. And they were doing so much. And Barack Hussein Obama, the first black president, destroyed it, with a fake color revolution. And the socialist and communist and leftist groups didn't do anything to support Gaddafi. It was absolutely outrageous. And so that was the moment where I realized something was wrong. I was in the Occupy Wall Street Park the day Gaddafi died, and I noticed that there were a lot of working class young people like me who supported Gaddafi, who saw him as anti-imperialist. A lot of them were libertarian or conspiracy minded, but the professional left, the Trotskyites, the people working for Democratic Party foundations, didn't support Gaddafi. I saw Gaddafi as a great hero, as an anti-colonial fighter. And the communists and the leftists and the George Soros people saw Gaddafi as, oh, he's a dictator. Oh, he's not woke. Oh, he's a Muslim. He doesn't believe in God. He must be an anti-Semite, and that is where my differences with the mainstream left. The very beginning of Out of the Movement to the Masses, the very seeds of it were planted on October 20th, 2011, the day that Gaddafi was killed. So that's very, very, very important. And what Jimmy Dore said there about immigration is also very important, because it has always been a pet peeve of mine when the left pretends that mass migration is somehow a good thing. Look, I don't want to demonize immigrant workers. And I think that a crackdown on immigrants, like what ICE is doing right now, is actually not going to benefit the country in any way. That said, it's not a good thing that every day they find multiple dead bodies along the Mexican border. That's not good. It is not a good thing that people drown in the Mediterranean trying to get to Europe. It's not good. And it is caused by imperialism. And they want a mass inflow of migrants. And they want those migrants to be in the shadows and desperate for work, getting paid, poverty wages. That's what they want. That's what they want. And it's not a good thing. And, we shouldn't persecute immigrants and we shouldn't promote bigotry against them. But at the same time, it is not a good thing. And the crisis of mass migration is a crisis. And that used to be something that leftists talked about. They said, that the fact that people are fleeing to the first world from the third world in mass is bad. And now you're not allowed to say that. Now, if you say that, you're a big fat racist. Now, all you're allowed to say is immigration. Woo! Shut up, white man. Shut up, white man. Well, no. There should be a prosperous life on the African continent for the African people. There should be a prosperous life in Central America and in Mexico and in South America. People shouldn't have to flee their homes. And they shouldn't have to flee their homes. And it's a bad thing. And that ICE is violating people's rights and violating people's civil liberties, and it's a goon squad that is threatening our freedoms. I don't agree with what ICE is doing. And a lot of what the Trumpers want to happen makes the issues worse, right? So if people can't just walk over the border, what are they going to do? They're going to pay MS-13 or some kind of criminal gang to smuggle them in the country. And if immigrant communities are terrified to cooperate with law enforcement and call the police, that's going to allow these kind of more. The reason that immigrant workers get poverty wages is because they're afraid of being deported. Well, if they're not terrified of being deported, they could demand that their employers pay them a decent wage, and they wouldn't be, driving the wages down. So I don't think hating immigrants, building a giant wall is the solution, but mass migration is not a good thing. And you're not allowed to say that. The woke left has decided that's off limits. If you say that, you're racist, etc. Well, no, it's reality. People should be able to live in their countries, and Gaddafi should have been able to build that African bank and construct economic development of the African continent to move toward African unity and Pan-Africanism. And the people of Nicaragua, their socialist government should be able to flourish, etc. It is not a good thing that people in the developing world have to flee to the first world. And that's just a fact. And that doesn't make you a bigot. And the fact that, you're not allowed to say that on the left is a really, really big problem. And I guess there's a little bit more about immigration in this clip, from Jimmy Dore. And then we'll go to another segment. But yeah, this Jimmy Dore, Tucker Carlson interview is the cutting edge. Like, everyone should listen to this.
I could to get into the United States.
100%.
Yeah, I would lie, cheat, and steal.
I'd walk from Tegucigalpa any day.
That's right, to give my kids a better life and myself. And so that's what they did in Europe. So you go there, and it's to dilute the culture and get people fighting amongst each other, so you don't come together and fight the man.
But Gaddafi thought that,
and he thought that they didn't want that. He didn't realize that they wanted that. And as soon as they realized that they wanted that, he was gone. So there was many reasons to get rid of him. And of course, Hillary Clinton famously said,
"Oh yeah,
we came, we saw, he died," and she giggled about it because they're blood-soaked psychopaths.
I don't think that's an overstatement.
It's not an overstatement at all. Are you kidding me? They're all for the Iraq War. They killed 1 million people, right, in the Iraq War, and look what they did to Libya. Now it's got open slave market still to this day. Nobody cares. They used plutonium-tipped bombs. So Gaddafi took desert and turned it into farmland. He created a water system, which is considered like the 8th wonder of the world.
Yeah, the Great Man-Made River, the world's largest irrigation system.
And they bombed it. They bombed it with depleted uranium-tipped bombs.
Why?
To make it a failed state. And so now the water is polluted with, uranium. And
was that NATO?
Yeah, that's the good guys.
Yeah,
we're the good
Defensive
guys.
Alliance.
Yeah, the Defensive Alliance, right? UK, France, and the United States. We were the good guys. That's what people think. I'll never forget when Tulsi was running for president, and she went on Stephen Colbert, who's one of the biggest disappointments ever to comedy, and he said to her, when she was telling the truth about Syria, right, and she was saying, we shouldn't be doing this regime change wars and stuff, and he leaned over and he said, "I see America as a force for good in the world," with a straight face. With a straight face. That's a grown-up man who's been in comedy his whole life. You think America is a force? Have you looked around the world? We have 1,000 military bases. What has that gotten anybody? Did you see what we did to Iraq? Did you see what we did to Libya? Do you see what we're currently doing to Syria? He didn't. It's all, again, that's why you get those jobs, because that's what you're going to say. If they said something like I was going to say, I wouldn't get that job.
Yes, that is so true. And, Gaddafi was a great anti-colonial leader, and we have to stand behind Ibrahim Traore. That's what this rally coming up in Chicago is about. Ibrahim Traore is the new Gaddafi. He is the great anti-colonial leader of our lifetime, the leader of Burkina Faso, the leader of the Union of Sahel States, and we have to be in the streets to back him up 100% and not stab him in the back the way he was stabbed in the back. We have to be in the streets to support this great African leader. And I think it's so important because the way the left betrayed Gaddafi and refused to stand with Libya just because Barack Obama was the president and just because they were portraying it as a woke color revolution was one of the greatest disasters ever. And I'm actually going to show, this is the rally that we did in Chicago, in Rockford, Illinois, actually, to support Ibrahim Traore, the great African leader. And I'm going to show this before we move on to the next segment with Jimmy Dore. This was our rally we did in the streets of Rockford, Illinois, to support African leader Ibrahim Traore, and people loved it. We got a positive response from the locals. Take a look.
In Rockford, Illinois, and we're here to say that Ibrahim Traore is right and AFRICOM is wrong.
Hands off Traore! Hands off Africa! Hands off Traore! Hands off Africa! Hands off Traore! Hands off Africa! Hands off Traore!
Today we're speaking about Ibrahim Traore, all the good things he has done. He is actually a leader that's provided true inspiration, not just for his people of Burkina Faso, but for everyone around the world.
Are in the belly of what is happening around the world. We get up, we go to work, we go home, we get online. We pretend like we don't know, but we do know. We feel the crushing imperialist boot on our necks, and can we get it off? Yes, we can!
Yes, we can!
Fuck yeah!
Fuck yeah!
We can!
Yes, we can!
Don't let them stop you.
Ibrahim Traore is the captain, president, Ibrahim Traore, the traditional president of Burkina Faso.
I think he's a remarkable leader for the whole world. Whenever I see him, I'm really compelled by him.
Hands off Ibrahim Traore. And we're representing the Center for Political Innovation because we want economic development. We don't want degrowth.
People are liking it, huh?
Yeah, a lot of people are receptive or at least curious.
And I think if we take an example like this, and stand up for countries like this and learn from it, we too have a better prosperity, not just for ourselves now, but for generations to come.
So unique and so different from the various other leaders of the world. He's amazing to me.
Down with NATO!
Down with NATO!
Hands off Africa!
Hands off Africa!
Down with NATO!
Down with NATO!
Hands off Africa!
Hands off Africa!
We are an energized group fighting for working families. We are an energized group fighting for the world. We want this message to get out to everyone, far and wide, to get off your butts, to make it happen. We are one because we are in this fight together.
We've got Africa's Flame, the rise of Ibrahim Traore, the current president of Burkina Faso, who's doing beautiful, amazing things, building up the country for his people.
They kicked out the French. They formed an alliance with Mali and Niger. Security defense, economic defense. Traore is leading an agricultural revolution. They are training soldiers to be farmers. They're training farmers to be soldiers. And he's a Muslim. And it is now a crime in Burkina Faso to stir up religious division that undermines the unity of the country.
So we're supporting a real role model here.
Let me tell you a little bit about this man, Ibrahim Traore. This man is not only a leader for Burkina Faso who cares about the people of Africa and the people of the world, who's standing with Russia, who's standing with the people of the world against U.S. imperialism. And it's because that he's doing that they've made so many attempts on his life.
I would be willing to put my life on the line for him, to protect him, because he represents hope. He represents true hope and progress in this world, and I pray to God that nothing happens to him.
And my question is this: where does value come from? Where does value come from? They want you to think value comes down from the sky. They want you to think value comes from Wall Street derivative ripoff schemes. They want you to think value comes from Facebook likes and shares and hits. They want you to think value is magical. But the answer to where value comes from is within you. It is within you. It is your human labor power and your creativity. That is the source of all wealth in this world.
Yes.
And if we want to have a strong economy, we need to invest in human beings, invest in people, invest in children so they grow up and get an education and become strong and powerful and effective and smart. We need to invest in communities. We need to invest in families. That is the future.
Freedom. I think of economic growth. I think of someone who truly cares about the needs of the people and not the top 1% or the top 0.01% or whatever it is, which is the rest of the world seems to be focused on in the West anyway. We need economic development for everyone, not just for the people at the top. And that's the kind of system we're living under, why people are struggling so much.
We are here to proclaim that we will not be stopped. We will not let the imperialists threaten us. We will not let them intimidate us. We are CPI and we are here to fight for Africa.
Yeah. Like you guys in the US, ourselves in Australia, we're being held back by big finance, and we need to have a government that actually fights for working families and ordinary working people.
Investing millions and millions of francs to revamp stadiums and hold games for youth sports so they can be healthy and strong and they can build an identity of their own in working together. Abraham Traore was a soccer player himself, and he just held a very friendly game with other professional soccer players, and he won 3 matches. How about that? Go Traore!
Go Traore!
Let all nations have self-determination and develop peaceful relationships, peaceful trade with each other, and innovate and share that innovation with each other so that we can live in peace, prosperity, and harmony, because there is plenty to go around.
This is the model of what can be here. You must fight. You must get up. You must be brave. Don't let them tell you that your words have no meaning, that they'll throw you in jail if you speak up. The more of us that speak up, what happens? Then more speak up, and more speak up. Don't let that frighten you. Get off your butts, do something about it. Fight for a future that you want.
We need a world where people refuse to take advantage of the downtrodden.
We need to take an alternative road, because the road we're going is leading us to nowhere but to oblivion.
And this leader in Africa is a leader who understands that. And that is why he is investing in his people. He is providing free health care to mothers in the hospital. He is providing university education to his people. Not only is college free, but while you're there, you get a stipend, a paycheck, so you can focus on your studies. You don't have to work. Imagine that. The young people of Burkina Faso, in a way, are richer than all the young people in America. You go to college in America, you're going to be in student debt for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years. In Burkina Faso, not only do you not go into student debt, but on top of that, you get a paycheck while you're there so you can pay your bills and focus on your studies. He is enabling millions and millions of people to rise up from poverty, to launch their own farms, to pave their roads. Fisheries are opening up. Pineapple orchards are opening up. This is a pro-growth president who invests in human beings and invests in his people.
There's nothing more important right now happening in the world than what's happening right here in the belly of the beast, in the belly of imperialism. Can we make this happen? Yes. Yes, it can happen.
What we need is a win-win situation where we can find an economic system where deals or contracts whereby what makes America prosper also makes our trading prosper.
Better world is possible, but understand, if we don't believe that, if we listen to those who tell us that nothing is possible, then that's what we will get. We will get nothing.
Hands off Africa! Hands off Africa! Hands off Africa!
What can I say about imperialism other than the fact that it is a crushing force that is now taking its way from the tentacles of the United States and around the world, sucking the resources from other countries, impoverishing them, degrowing them, crushing them, making sure that they can't become everything that they have dreamt of being.
Organizations such as the Center for Political Innovation is critical to spreading the awareness, the knowledge of leaders such as Abraham Traore.
And right now we don't have a government that invests in people. We have a government that invests in destroying people. A government that invests in bombs and tanks and weapons and prisons for profit. a government that defends drug cartels, a government that arms terrorist groups. And that is not the way forward. There's a small group of very, very rich people who sit at the top of the world. And they've decided that the only way they can keep their throne and keep themselves at the top is to stop human progress. And they're wrong, because there is no limit to growth. There is no limit to growth. Human creativity and brilliance is unlimited. And we can build and we can construct.
We got books! We got books!
I saw two cars pull up at the stop sign, and then they had their lights, they were flashing to get our attention. And then I saw a fist come out, and then I was like, oh yes, there's somebody who absolutely understands what we're doing. And then I saw a woman come out, and she started honking her horn, and then I didn't know there was a car behind her, and then we just started cheering. They were just honking. I heard them say thank you, because now they know what we're about, what we were doing, what we're standing for, why we're out here on this road, getting the attention of those who pass by. So they all honked. The car behind them came out and they honked as well. And they seemed extremely supportive, very happy that we're out here bringing awareness, you know, in a place where likely of all places, which you see a big giant sign, a big, you know, poster of Ibrahim Traore. But here we are, CPI, bringing awareness, making it happen, and understanding that people, the more we do this, it'll catch fire. Indeed. And it seems as though it already has.
I think, yeah, there's been a number of people that have positive reactions to our rally, to the banner, to our chants, to our speeches.
We will march together, we will fight together, no matter who you are, no matter what political persuasion, no matter what race, because we are all here fighting a class struggle that is more than the sum of its parts. We are one.
But I think if we're getting positive reactions like that out here, that's a very good sign. And it's a sign of progress, and it's a sign that people are starting to wake up.
Ibrahim Traore is working with Russia bad! Russia bad! Oh my God, Russia bad! No, Ibrahim Traore went to the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in Russia, and he got to see their equipment, and he got to see their spirit of unity and their spirit of cooperation, and how they were able to defeat fascism, which we've never forgiven them for. So, also Ibrahim Traore is investing in education for his students to go to Russia, and Russia has students coming to Burkina Faso, so they can learn each other's culture, and they can build peaceful nuclear energy.
Yay!
Peaceful nuclear energy.
Yep, that's us. We are the Center for Political Innovation. And, you know, just like Gaddafi was fighting for the African people, Ibrahim Traore is doing the same thing, and we got to make sure that he doesn't meet the fate of Gaddafi. So we're going to continue with Jimmy Dore. And actually, the next section that I'm going to play from Jimmy Dore is related to why it's important to have a movement, why it's not enough to simply talk about these ideas on podcasts. This is a very, very insightful part of Jimmy Dore's interview with Tucker Carlson. So we'll continue.
Thing for him, for his supporters to vote for Hillary Clinton. And it was because Trump, right? Which, you know, the Democrats, they say they hate Trump, but they love him because that's.
He's talking about Bernie Sanders. Let me roll it back a little bit, right? Just so you get the context here. He's talking about how Bernie Sanders surrendered to Hillary Clinton.
Half the place was filled with Bernie supporters who wanted to overthrow the establishment, get money out of politics, overthrow the corporatists inside the party, and give it back to the people. It was amazing. Then it was a ruckus. It was a real ruckus.
I was there. I remember.
And they turned the lights out on people. They used sound cannon, all kinds of stuff, right? I was there. You were there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it was invigorating. I'm like, this is it. We got them. The next time we're going to have a convention, they can't stop this. This is a trick. Well, what they did was they got Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders tucks his tail. He endorses Hillary Clinton, and he extracts not one concession for doing so. Nothing. He didn't ask for anything for his supporters to vote for Hillary Clinton. And it was because Trump, right? Which, the Democrats, they say they hate Trump, but they love him because that's their biggest fundraiser is Donald Trump. Donald Trump goes away. How are they going to? So they have to make another. So not only did he do that, but he did nothing with his movement, right? So he had half the people who voted in the Democratic primary on his side, probably more because he got cheated. So he did nothing. He didn't ask. Just like Barack Obama, when he got elected, he disbanded his followers, right? His young people. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. He didn't say, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to shut it down. We're going to have a protest here. We're going to have a protest there. We're going to go occupy Wall Street. We're going to occupy the DNC. We're going to make sure they get corporate. He didn't ask them to do anything. And that's how you know. And that he was corrupted and co-opted, put it that way. And so same thing happened in 2020. They all got together, cheated him in a different way this time. And he just endorsed Joe Biden without asking nothing. We didn't get a public option. We didn't get a raise a minimum wage. We didn't get nothing. And and he didn't ask his followers to do anything. And he still won't ask his followers to do anything. Just like AOC. They won't say get in the street. They won't say go protest here, go protest there. They're playing along. They're good boys.
What's AOC's game? What do you think she actually
She's a narcissist who's using politics for celebrity. She could easily be an actress in Hollywood.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. He is so right there about the fact that if our political leaders, if these progressive people were serious, they would get the masses of people out in the streets, and not out in the streets for no kings to say, oh, Trump, we hate Trump, Trump sucks. No, but out in the streets to make demands, out in the streets to call for Medicare for all, out in the streets to demand that, we have jobs, to demand an end to these wars, right? They could do it, right? If they called a mass movement, if Bernie Sanders and AOC really wanted to stop the war, they would call a mass anti-war protest movement. They haven't done that. If they really wanted Medicare for all, they could have forced the vote. They could have demanded it. They don't do that. They will not build a movement. And a movement is what we urgently need in this country right now. And the Center for Political Innovation is striving to build that movement. And Jimmy Dore gets it. He gets it. It takes a movement to get these kinds of things. You don't get these kinds of things by voting, and you certainly don't get these kinds of things by canceling people for disagreeing. You get these kinds of things by building a movement, and they could easily do it. They could get on TV and they could tell their supporters to go out in the streets and organize. They don't do that. They're trying to demobilize people, get people out of the streets, get people back into the ballot box. But anyway, I want to continue with this interview. There's a pretty good section that starts out. He talks about how Donald Trump's 2024 election campaign was a scam. And he goes from there to talk about some other important stuff about Rage Against the War Machine and all kinds of important stuff. Here we go.
But his particular presidential campaign was the biggest con I've seen since Nigerian princes learned how to email. It was amazing. And people
even more clever than any Nigerian prince I've ever been emailed by.
He got people way smarter than me convinced. And, I didn't vote for Trump. I never voted for Republican. I voted for Dave Chappelle. I wrote him in. And, but people think I did campaign rallies for Donald Trump. I didn't do campaign rallies.
Well, I actually did.
Yeah, I know.
A number of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
When Tucker and Tulsi Gabbard were at Madison Square Garden, CPI was outside with a big banner that said "Only peace can make America great again," and had the banner, the image of Trump and Kim Jong-un shaking hands. No, Jimmy knows us. Jimmy knows us. I've been on his show 2 or 3 times, and he knows us. Yeah, no question about it. He knows who we are. And we were out in front of Madison Square Garden doing our best to boost the peace messaging of Trump's campaign, which he apparently didn't mean.
And to wake up and substantively, he's no different from Chuck Schumer on economics and foreign policy,
or Lindsey Graham,
or Lindsey Graham. And you're like, yeah, but Chuck Schumer is like for the Republican brain is like, evil.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do Trump and Chuck Schumer disagree on the biggest issues? And they don't. And so
they both want to keep you away from healthcare.
Yep.
They both want to do foreign wars. They both support Israel unconditionally in what they're doing. They both want to crush a worker strike.
Yeah.
So so that was why it was so important for Biden and the Democrats to crush that railroad strike, because that would have set the template and an example. Just like the truckers in Canada, they'd had to stop that immediately, call them Nazis and white supremacists, and they had to debank them and shut down. They had to do that because they didn't want that catching on.
Oh yeah.
And just like Michael Parenti said, they only care about what you think. And if you see that and you start to think different thoughts than the media wants you, they got a problem. And so that's why
they want to crush a movement. The truckers had a movement, and that's what they were scared of. And that's why they sent out the memo, oh, they're Nazis, they're white supremacists. That's why they canceled and smeared them. They're afraid of a real movement.
They crushed that railroad worker strike immediately. And so that, again, this is what we need. We need workers to realize that we have, and there's this thing now where AOC wouldn't join with Marjorie Taylor Greene to oppose the genocide in Gaza. And she's like, well, she's white supremacist, whatever, this whole thing. And, that's not how you organize, right? And I experienced that when we had right after the Ukraine war started, we had an anti-war rally in Washington, D.C., and Code Pink wouldn't join it. Code Pink, their whole thing is to be against war. And they wouldn't join it because there were certain speakers on the lineup that they didn't feel agreed with their views on LGBTQ.
Oh, come on.
And I'm like,
serious?
So that revealed, and I love Medea Benjamin.
Yeah, I do too.
But that organization just proved themselves to be a bunch of cosplaying women.
Totally fraudulent.
Fraud, because that's not how you everybody knows that, right? That's not how, it's like, well, I'd like to stop a nuclear war, but not with those people. You know what I mean? That's it. So it's like, that's what gives it power, when you are able to join with people who you don't agree with on other things and vehemently disagree on other things, and you come around a single idea. That's what gives it the power.
Exactly.
If it's just people that agree with you on everything, they can dismiss you and say, oh, those are those crazy lefties. But if you have these right-wingers who don't agree with you, that's what gives it power. And it's like, I talk up, I was been in unions all my life, and here's how you don't organize a union. You don't go to the shop floor and say, hey, who's here is a gun nut? All right, you're out. Who here doesn't agree with the trans agenda? All right, you're out. Who doesn't agree with Medicare for all? Okay, you're out. Who doesn't agree on the war? Okay, you're out. All right, now I'm going to organize who's left. That's not how it works.
No.
And Christian Smalls proved that when he organized a bunch of right-wingers on Staten Island, a bunch of Trump voters, to go against Jeff Bezos and the oligarchy. That's not how you go, hey, we have a common interest. And our common interest is against the man. And so we can forget about those other issues and we can work on those later. But right now we have a bigger issue, and the bigger issue is to oppose this guy so we can get decent working conditions, we can get health care, we can get a decent wage. That helps lift everybody's boat. And
yes, he is so right. And we lived this. I mean, CPI, we were official sponsors of the Rage Against the War Machine rally in Washington, D.C. And our friend Scott Ritter, who's a good friend of ours, I've been on his channel. I mean, he's spoken at many CPI events. Unfortunately, they pushed him off the podium. So we did what was one of the most epic moments in CPI history. Is we had the after party for the Rage Against the War Machine rally, and Scott didn't even know what he was coming to. We invited him, and I mean, this is one of the most epic CPI moments.
Ideas are great, but the reason that the Center for Political Innovation exists is to put on events like this, to give a platform to ideas we don't widely hear in the United States, to educate people about anti-imperialism and socialism.
And that is why it is really an honor tonight to bring forward our guest of honor, a real hero, someone who deserves to be heard from the heavens. Everyone should hear what this man has to say. Scott Ritter is here. Scott Ritter is here. We are proud that Scott Ritter is here. This is a hero. This is a hero right here. We love you, Scott. We love you. Go ahead and give us some words. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. To be honest, I thought I was just coming here to a reception to say hi to people, and speaking is, hopefully it's a bonus.
Yeah, that was a great moment for the Center for Political Innovation that shows that we're not part of this cancel culture bullshit. And it also shows you can't get rid of us, right? You know, there was some drama. We couldn't get on the stage, so we organized the after party. We are going to find a way to build our movement, right? We're not going to be maneuvered out of things, right? You can work against us, and you can try to marginalize us, and you can get involved in this, power hungry push-pull. Doesn't work. CPI just keeps coming back because we are the real deal. We are the Center for Political Innovation. We backed the Rage Against the War Machine. We backed it again. I was just in Michigan at Rage Against the War Machine 3 with Joe Kent. You can watch the video of that from a couple weeks ago, or just a week or so ago. That was really, really great. Yes, Pasta was there. Pasta's our good friend. I mean, CPI is really something special. But anyway, we're going to continue the Tucker Carlson interview. He gets into some really, really good stuff. This is Jimmy Dore with Tucker Carlson, and he talks about the left and the FBI. And this is just epic. This is just epic what Jimmy Dore says here.
FBI assets that you have inside the Capitol before the riot started. I can't tell you that. What? The answer should be none.
You would think.
Yeah. So, of course, so they did the same playbook in Brazil, by the way. So, again, you don't have to be a Trump fan or a Bolsonaro fan to realize that if they can do it to those people, they'll do it to anybody, which is what I tried to tell Cornel West when he came on my show.
I know.
And he wouldn't listen to it. Why? It's like, if you don't think if they can do this to Donald Trump, that they're not going to do it to you if you ever become a threat, or they'll do it to Bernie Sanders if he ever becomes a threat, or Jill Stein, or anybody who becomes a threat, they use the exact same playbook on January 6th. They did it to Bolsonaro. They had a fake insurgency that overtook the Capitol, and they made it illegal for him to run for president. And the same thing they were trying to do to Donald Trump, but they couldn't. Because he didn't cross that line. He didn't tell people to go in. He did. So anyway, and people don't still till to this day, people don't realize that it was the FBI did that. The FBI is not your friend. The FBI. It's amazing what Trump did to the left. Trump got the left to go along with the FBI. All of a sudden, they're the good guys. At the CIA, they're the good guys. It's amazing. We know that the FBI infiltrates every lefty organization, and we know. And this idea that we have to worry about right wing terrorists inside the United States. Well, 9 out of 10, if not 99 out of 100 of those terrorist happenings are invented by the FBI, just like the Whitmers.
Exactly.
They were going to kidnap her. Turns out 9 out of the 13 people in the van were FBI. Of course, I mean, they do this with this is over and over and over again.
He is so correct. The idea that you couldn't question the FBI or else you were spreading right-wing conspiracy theories, that was something else. When I saw communist groups have rallies to support James Comey, the RCP, the Revolutionary Communist Party, Bob Avakian's group, was out in front of the White House, defend James Comey. That was so ridiculous. And after January 6th, you couldn't criticize the FBI without people saying, you're spreading right-wing conspiracy theories. It was insane. The FBI is not our friend, and the FBI rigged the elections. And this is an important point about that, okay? When I say the FBI rigged the elections, Hunter Biden's laptop, folks, showing all kinds of criminal behavior, was a major news story in 2020. And the FBI went to the major TV networks and went to Facebook and to Twitter and said, don't allow this story to go viral, suppress this story. Because it's Russian propaganda. That was the FBI. And it turned out the story was 100% true. It was not Russian propaganda. The New York Times has now admitted that Hunter Biden's laptop was 100% real. The FBI went around and interfered. And this is not just an issue. It's not just a matter of, you like Trump and you're mad Trump didn't win. No, this war in Ukraine wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for that. If they hadn't crippled Trump and put that threat of calling him a Putin agent for his first term, if they hadn't used the hoax of Russian propaganda to get Biden into the White House, the war in Ukraine right now that has killed hundreds of thousands of people would not be happening. This is the Russiagate hoax, and the FBI pushing the Russiagate hoax that they knew wasn't true has killed hundreds of thousands of people. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are dead right now who would still be alive if it wasn't for the FBI interfering in American politics and pushing this hoax, this claim that Russia somehow rigged the elections. Russia's responsible for Trump winning. If they hadn't done that, this war in Ukraine wouldn't be happening. That is mass murder on a scale none of us can even imagine. And the idea that we had to defend the FBI because Donald Trump is racist, that is so ridiculous. I have said to people so many times, tell me about this right wing that it is my job to protect U.S. imperialism from, right? U.S. imperialism, I guess, isn't the greatest evil. It's the right wing. And who is this right wing? What is it? Well, there are these people out there, Caleb, and they're racist and they're sexist and they're homophobic. Okay, well, I mean, there's most people on the planet probably don't agree with gay marriage. None of the Muslims do. Most of the Christians in this world don't. I mean, so they're the problem, or what is the deal? Well, there are these people that are right wing. So you got to support the FBI that killed Fred Hampton. You got to support the FBI that did COINTELPRO against Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You got to support them, because if you don't, then who's going to protect us from the right wing? It is such a ridiculous hoax, and all the phony communist groups went along with it. You're not allowed to criticize the FBI because of the right wing. It is so ridiculous, and I really got tired of it. And, I refused to go along with it. I did want to mention, before we play another segment, he talked about getting in the streets and all of that. The No Kings rally that the Democrats did, where they did not mention anything to do with the war in Iran, even though the people at the rally were overwhelmingly against the war with Iran. We at CPI, we blocked the parade. It was a proud moment for the Center for Political Innovation. I want you to see what we did. We said, hands off Iran, and they had to call the NYPD and clear us off of Fifth Avenue. It was absolutely epic. Our team, Noah and Gabby and Briggy and Paul and Jessica, we blocked the No Kings rally in New York City. It was an absolutely epic moment where we stood up against the liberal, stop Trump hoax and stood in solidarity with Iran against U.S. imperialism. I am going to show you that video.
Hands off Iran!
Hands off Iran!
Democrats are complicit. Hands off Iran!
Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran.
Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran.
Democrats are complicit.
Democrats are complicit.
Control the opposition.
How do you feel, Irving?
Good. My grandfather was still alive now. He was a civil surgeon who used to serve in a rural part of Iran, so like in a northeastern part of Iran, city called Mashhad in close to Afghanistan. So he used to serve there, and my mother grew up there in Iran when she was younger. And this was after the revolution, so there was a real need for like doctors. Holding this flag, it means a lot.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, Iran's being bombed right now, and they're standing with Palestine.
Yeah, very much so. It's the main country that's resisting, and you have much of the not just the Islamic world, but much of the world, the global South, stands in solidarity with Iran. It's a very big pleasure to be joined by Caleb and by the CPI.
Yeah.
Did you hear, Noah, that the No Kings organizers didn't include no war on Iran in their call?
Yeah, even mainstream media, how can you not do that? But of course, the Democrats, they applaud when Trump lies about the Iranian people, but when he talks about stuff that doesn't really matter, then they scowl.
All right, so we've claimed a good spot here near the stage to do our thing. All right, are we ready, guys? Ready to do this? So when the song ends.
Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran! Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran!
Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran! Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran!
Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran! Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran! Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran!
Go away, lady.
Follow you, damn it! They don't deserve to be bombed!
You're still out to your own fight.
Yeah, you support kids getting bombed by the U.S.? You support that? Fucking dumbass.
They deserve to get bombed.
They're killing, we just bombed babies in the school. The fuck?
Democrats to stop the war, hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war, hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war, hands off Iran! I've been chased by cops at the war, hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war, hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Stop Iran! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war! Come on, man! The war! Stop the war! Stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats can 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 stop the war! Come on, man! Democrats can stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war! Hands off Iran! Democrats have got the war! Hands off Iran! We are on the same side. Can you please move? Hands off Iran! Democrats are
Go back! Go back! Go back! Go back! Go back!
Democrats are complicit! Democrats are complicit! Controlled opposition! Democrats are complicit! Democrats!
What do you think?
I think it's great. We're getting the word out. I mean, there's so many people here who are anti-Trump, but they don't talk about the Democrats.
Democrats are complicit. Hands off Iran.
Hands off Iran! The unions, the Democrats are complicit! Hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Hands off Iran! Hands off Iran!
Stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands
the wars. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the wars. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the wars. Hands off Iran.
The protest on the side. You can't block it.
Real quick, let's first take the vehicle. Hands off Iran! Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Hands off. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran.
So we've been standing here holding up the march for over an hour, and we're getting lots of thumbs up from people, lots of support. Everyone going by likes us. We had kind of a dust up with the marshals, but this is really going really well.
Hands off Iran. The Democrats are complicit. 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 Hands off Iran.
How's it going, Gabby?
Going
good. Going good.
The Democrats are complicit.
How do you feel?
Good.
The Democrats are complicit.
Finally.
Hands off Iran. The Democrats are complicit. Hands off Iran. The Democrats are complicit. Hands off Iran. The Democrats are complicit. Hands off Iran.
Do you like our message?
Yes, I like your message. I think that the U.S. bombed threw a missile on those children and they died for nothing and nobody even cares. And I wonder what Hexas would say to his 7 children if they would throw a bomb on his children for nothing.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. The Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran.
Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war. Hands off Iran. Democrats can stop the war.
Yep, that's us. And Jimmy Dore tweeted out the video of that. He was impressed. I sent him the video and he congratulated me. He thought it was absolutely awesome that we did that. We got more from this great interview that Jimmy Dore did on the Tucker Carlson show. He gets spiritual. He starts talking about his relationship with God and Jungian psychology and all kinds of different stuff. So we're going to continue. This is another good section where he talks about his religious experiences, dreams, etc.
Being energized from the inside, because you are. And then you get married, and then of course the projections fall off, and you're like, "Who's this person I married?" That's what happens to a lot of people, right? And that's what happens in midlife, right? A lot of guys in midlife, they have an anima projection, and they feel like, I can't live without this person, because it's a connection to their own soul. Your anima represents your soul. And so and you're like, well, how could I, disavow my own, this relationship, because it feels like if I do, I'll die. And it's their first connection to their own self, a rejoining of their conscious mind with their unconscious mind. And so Carl Jung knew we had a soul, knew there's a God, which, Freud was totally against all that. Freud was afraid that people would not take them seriously and dismiss them as mystics and whatever. And Jung wasn't. Jung had mystical experiences. He had direct experiences of the divine. And he saw the people, the clergy, when he was a kid, that didn't. He saw that they didn't. He knew he had direct experience. If you read Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he talks about
his autobiography.
Yeah. He talks about how the clergy, they were all empty, especially his father. And when he would question it, his father was like, he didn't have answers and he didn't want him to talk about it. And he could see how empty they were, that there was just dogma that they didn't have direct experience of the divine. And he did. And I've had that since I started reading Jung, and so I've been going inward, right? So Jung says, he who looks outward dreams, he who goes inward awakens. And so I have a direct connection to the divine. I've had numinous experiences. And
what's a numinous experience?
A numinous, it's like a sacred spiritual happening that kind of happens to you against your own will. And it takes you over, right? I've experienced that, like when I quit smoking pot, people are like, why'd you quit smoking pot? I'm like, I don't know. I felt like there was some outside force telling me to do it. And it was hard. So people who say that marijuana isn't addictive, it is. I was at least 6 months before I could sleep, and it was horrible. I was in bad shape, and I just knew I had to quit.
How did you know?
I just, again, like I said, I just had this outside. I felt like there was something guiding me to do this, and so I did. And your dreams are your psyche, or as Jung would call it, the self with a capital S, meaning the divine talking to you and speaking to you in symbols. And we share a collective. So you have a personal unconscious, right? The things that you personally split off from your own personality and put in your unconscious and your shadow. And then you have a collective unconscious, which Joseph Campbell also talked about.
Yes.
And he was my first entree into this was Joseph Campbell. And he talked about how, different societies who had no way of connecting with each other use the same symbolism to explain life and the spiritual.
Literally, in a way that's spooky. I mean,
spooky.
It's shocking.
And Jung figured that out, that we have a collective unconscious, meaning there's only one consciousness, right? So there's not your consciousness and then the God conscious. There's just one consciousness, and we're a part of it. And the fact that you think you're separate from it is a mistake. And so we're part of it. And as we evolve our consciousness, we evolve the world's consciousness.
Now, all of that is really, really good. And I really commend Jimmy Dore for talking about his spiritual and psychoanalytical journey on this interview. That's a risk. It's one thing to talk about politics. People will agree with you. But when you start talking about God, there's a lot of people who think we shouldn't talk about God in CPI. Well, we do. You're welcome to join if you don't believe in God. We have Muslim members, we have Christian members, Catholic members, etc. But, my Christian faith and my religious experiences are a big, important reason about why I'm here. And, he talked about, your dreams being very important. I just want everyone to be aware. I don't want to dive too deeply into all of this tonight, right? Because this is a whole nother topic, but we're right there with Jimmy Dore on this. And in fact, if you go to the CPI website, we do have our kind of like introductory book called What is Innovationism? And Paul just did an audio book of it, and it's for free. You can read it for free on the CPI website. You can buy it on Amazon if you want, but you can also just read the PDF for free on the website. And actually, Paul did a great audio recording of it. In this book, we have a section on living as an innovationist and why your dreams are so important. You have to write your dreams down, and why, we talk about how most people are just living biologically. They are alive in the same way that an ant is alive or a weed in your garden is alive. But human beings have the capacity to be fully awakened, to be fully alive, not just living biologically, but living spiritually. And that's what CPI is all about. And if we just pretend that what we're doing is simply a political project, it's about so much more than that. We're trying to awaken people and to get them to take on a truly human existence by reinventing the world around them and striving for it to be a better place. We're embracing what it means to be human. And that's what CPI is all about. It's much, much deeper than simply a political activist project. And that if you don't look inward and begin to challenge yourself and begin to kind of spiritually awaken, you're not going to be able to stay on the revolutionary road. And that's an aspect of our community that makes people upset. That's when people say, oh, it's a cult, it's a cult. Well, no, this is an illiberal organization of people coming together and realizing what Jimmy said, that we have one consciousness. We have one consciousness, and that in order to really be human, you have to awaken, you have to do spiritual and psychological work. You have to look into your subconscious. You have to look into your motivations. We're not ashamed of that in CPI. We're proud to be a religious and spiritual movement. And I encourage you to watch the whole interview and watch what Jimmy Dore says. I have talks where I reflect on psychoanalysis and Freud and Jung and different stuff like that. And, we're not going to get too far into that tonight, but it's an important part of who we are as a community. And I mean, we shouldn't be ashamed of that. Now, I'm going to show another segment from the Jimmy Dore interview where he gets back to politics. Before I do that, I do want to remind you all In the second half of the show, I need you all to ask questions, right? The second half of the show is all you guys. So please go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Send me a question. You can also do super chats. We're monetized again. You can do super chats. They're appreciated. But yeah, send questions for the second half of the show. So we're going to continue with the Jimmy Dore interview. And this is where they start getting into like, what is the answer? Like, what do we do about this? So here we go.
Sense. It will never make any sense.
Because actually it's not your body or your choice.
Well, then they stopped saying, so you notice that around COVID, they stopped saying I'm pro-choice and they literally started saying I'm pro-abortion.
I know. Like, that's what I was like, I'm out. Whatever this is too dark for me. But okay, so all of this, I think, thanks in part to your tireless efforts for the past 6 years, is now pretty obvious to most people who are paying attention that this system is fake, it's not serving its intended beneficiaries, and it's kind of over. So then the question becomes, well, what next and how do we get there? And the two potential paths are violent revolution, which I'm opposed to, or somehow using this broken system to improve or replace the broken system.
Yeah.
And what?
Well, Larry Fink is afraid of a violent revolution.
They're all afraid of it.
He said that they're going to start drone bombing these data centers. He's afraid of that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they know how hated they are.
You know, and they did and Jeff Bezos did this softball interview with CNBC last week or 2 weeks ago, and he talked about how if I pay more taxes, it's not going to help the nurse in Queens and all that stuff, you know. And he goes, if I do my job right, it's going to help people more than my philanthropy. Right? Oh, really? If you do your job right, you know what the turnover rate in a Amazon fulfillment center is? 150%. Yeah, 100 to 150% every year. So that means every 8 months, 100% new workers. And so why do 1/3 of your workers, the richest guy in the world, are on government assistance?
Why am I subsidizing your employees?
That's exactly right. Same thing you hear about Walmart. This is the country we've devolved into when you have a government by the oligarchs, for the oligarchs, and the workers get screwed. So that's where we're in. And exactly what I said before, bless you.
Excuse me. Woo!
The only way to do this is if people realize that they have a common humanity with their neighbor. Don't fall for it that your neighbor is the white supremacist, Nazi, racist that you have to oppose and that they're the enemy. No, they're, again, suffering under the same conditions you're suffering under. Join with them, oppose those people, the WEF globalists who actually run everything. You know, it's funny, people talk about communism, you don't get choice. People think back to, but capitalism has led us to the same thing. There's three companies that own everything. Yeah, Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock. That's the real boss. So Trump has a boss. They all, and I try to tell people that, you know, the Congress is that they're not, when they get, they're not doing the bidding. When they have a session of Congress, people go, oh, do you think they have secret meetings where they plan this stuff? Well, yes, actually they do. It's called Davos. It's called the Bilderbergs. We know that's real. That people just think that was crazy,
big time.
But I go. I used to say it's just a session of Congress. You think when they get together, they're doing the bidding of students or workers or the elderly. They're in there doing the bidding of the oligarchs, the donor class, the people who actually run. They're bosses, and it ain't you.
That's just a fact. That's no longer, I don't think there's a single word you just uttered that could be quibbled with even. It's all proven now. But because it is proven, that means it can't continue under the current terms. So I don't think, given everything you've said, you want violence. But is it inevitable? Like, how do we get out of this?
Well, John F. Kennedy said those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable, right? Or some version of that.
That's certainly true.
And so, you know, we have more guns in this country than people.
Yep.
So, in a sense, that's good because the government's supposed to fear the people, not the other way around.
Exactly.
When you fear your government, that's tyranny. And right now, I think people do fear their government.
Yes.
Again, I'm not calling for a violent revolution, but I think if workers come together, you have to shut down the machine. And if you can shut down the machine in a meaningful way, if all the truckers stop trucking, if all the railroad workers stop going to work, the port workers, that's how you gain control of your. But you see, they gave them the port workers, they gave them a nice contract right before Trump got into office, so they see it coming, right? And so we don't want them to get upset. We don't want them to. So, or if all the teachers didn't go to work, if all the grocery store workers didn't go to work. You know, that's the only way. If anybody else has another idea, let me know. I'll be all for it. But to me, that's the way that history proves that you can have peaceful revolution.
I would just correct you on the no teachers. That we actually did have a time for over a year when the teachers didn't go to work, and the people in charge really enjoyed it because ignorant kids mean more viable kids. But critical, like true critical functions, if they stop working, maybe will force people to pay attention. I guess.
Remember who the essential workers are?
Right.
It's not middle management.
No, is it the consultant class?
No, it is not.
Oh, it's not?
It's not the professional managerial class.
It's not. What about the private equity people?
No, they are not essential.
You couldn't, I don't even know if you could have a tax protest now because the government isn't funded through taxes.
Right? They just print the money.
Exactly.
Did you see that video where they asked, I forget the guy's name, but it was Joe Biden's economic advisor. And someone said, hey, if we print our own money, why do we borrow it? And he was like, for 5 minutes, he's like, well, that's good. Well, we print money. We definitely print money. We definitely borrow money. And he goes, I don't know. That's a good question. He couldn't answer the question. You ever see that video?
No.
Yes.
But I've actually wondered myself.
I wonder it too. If they could just create money, quantitative easing, they just invent it. Of course, they don't give that money to you.
No, it gives it to the banks.
And so what people don't realize, people fear socialism because they fear it's going to take money.
But anyhow, let's pause it here for a moment. This is really important stuff, and the conversation continues along these lines. I'm going to keep playing it here in a second, but what he said about violent revolution. I have pointed out time and time again that every great revolution in history was an act of self-defense. Abraham Lincoln did not come into office saying he wanted to violently overthrow slavery. He came into office wanting to restrain it, saying no more slave states, no fugitive slave law, trying to restrain slavery. And he had a mass movement of people, abolitionists, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, the Underground Railroad. There was a mass movement from the Second Great Awakening, the spiritual movement. They were saying we're not going to have slavery run the American government anymore. And that leadership, the fact that they elected Abraham Lincoln to office, was such a threat to the status quo that the Confederates took up arms and they were forced to have a violent revolution, but they tried to have a peaceful revolution. And in addition to that, you look at the Russian Revolution. The Tsar was brought down, and the Bolsheviks, and they built this whole network of community assemblies. And then Kornilov, the General Kornilov, was going to suppress the Soviets, the community assemblies. And so the Bolsheviks took up arms to defend their right to peacefully organize and defend St. Petersburg. And that's how the revolution happened. And in the Chinese Revolution, they tried to be part of the KMT nationalist government, and they were a big part of that government. They provided military training. They were high-ranking communist generals, etc. And then Chiang Kai-shek turned against them, and then Japan invaded. And they tried everything they could to have a peaceful revolution. Serious activists don't advocate violence. They advocate the right to self-defense, but they do not advocate violence. And every revolution that has become a violent revolution has only become that way because the people had no choice and had to defend themselves. And that must be important. We do not advocate violence. We do not advocate violence. We advocate a peaceful transition to socialism, a peaceful transition to a government of action that fights for working families. That's what we advocate. And if they won't allow it and force us to do the most American thing to defend ourselves, it may come to the point that we have to do that. But we do not advocate violence. And that's the same position that every revolutionary has taken. They do not advocate violence. Advocating violence is for fools. Advocating violence is for fools. That's what the enemy wants. If they can portray you as a violent extremist who is going out and committing acts of violence, that's what they want. And the CIA fomented the years of lead, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, in Italy, and fomented years of isolated terrorist, adventurous violence in Italy in order to keep NATO in control of Italy. So not advocating violence is a really, really important part of what CPI is about. And I was the first out there to talk about how Luigi Mangione, that's a psyop. They want Americans killing each other. They want Americans to avoid politics because they're afraid to get shot. Advocating violence is not what serious revolutionary organizers ever do. So I just wanted to get that out of my system. Let Jimmy and Tucker continue.
The haves and give it to the have-nots. But what our version of capitalism has done, this oligarchy, it's an upward transfer of wealth. That's what happened during COVID. An upward how many billionaires got invented? And it's continuing. It's an upward transfer of wealth from the working class to the oligarchs. That's what we're in right now with 3 companies that run everything.
So again, I don't see that as overstatement. Like, I think that's just true what you said. So I don't know. I'm very concerned because I do think the people who are benefiting are so rigid. That's what the main thing I notice, how rigid they are. They can't handle any disagreement whatsoever.
Right.
No, like Teddy Roosevelt rolls in and he's like a product of the ruling class. He is the ruling class. He becomes president by default. The president's assassinated, 1901, and he becomes president. He's like, look, this system will collapse unless we give a little bit. And he was the only president in American history able to make that case. And he kind of did adjust it enough that it continued another, 125 years.
Yeah.
But I don't see the current rulers as capable of that kind of subtlety or sacrifice or nuance or even just like intelligence. They're too stupid to understand. They're screwing themselves by being this rigid. That's my view.
Well, it's also FDR saw that there was a revolution of the workers,
yes,
and he was afraid that he told his ruling class, hey, this is coming here.
Big time.
If you don't give people some of your money. If you don't give them some of their money, they're going to take all of your money.
Yes.
And so he gave people jobs. He created the jobs program and created Social Security.
The CCC?
Yes, and things like that. And but then they also at the same time went on a tear to get rid of the communists, right?
Yeah.
And because they were a very force for so you not that anybody's for communism, but you need that kind of counterbalance.
And the economic populists above all.
That's right.
So
exactly.
Huey Long somehow gets assassinated before the 1936 presidential campaign by his own bodyguards. Kind of weird. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so all of what he's describing there, this is called Bonapartism. And I have this little pamphlet, What is Bonapartism? And I did a slideshow last week about, liberal societies collapsing into dictatorship and the process of how when there's a capitalist crisis, you get Bonapartist figures. One section of the ruling class battles another section and brings working people into the political process. That's a really big part of our understanding, right? When we understand the rise of Louis Bonaparte in France and what that was about and the counter gangs, et cetera. You can watch that. That's a really big part of our analysis. And what I liked here is that they talked about FDR, which we talk about FDR. FDR was the greatest president in American history. The two good presidents we had were Lincoln and FDR, in my view. And they talk about FDR and his alliance with the communists and with the working class. And they also talked about Huey Long, who was on the opposite side of FDR due to, some of the divisions in the ruling class, but had a really important role to play. I love Huey Long, and Huey Long was a really, really important figure. And, before we get to the next part of this interview, I'm going to put on, this is a clip I made. This is actual footage of Huey Long, the governor of Louisiana in the 1930s, who was assassinated because he fought for the working class and fought for the people. And this is also clips of John Goodman portraying Huey Long. But all of the things that you see here in this in this video are the actual words of Huey Long. Some of it is John Goodman reading them as an actor, and some of it is actually Huey Long. So I'm going to put that on. This is Huey Long, who they were just talking about. Huey Long is an absolutely awesome figure from American history. So this is a clip I made called "The Words of Huey Long." Right? The words of Huey Long. If I can here we go. All right, the words of Huey Long.
According to the tables which we have assembled, it is our estimate that 4% of the American people own 85% of the wealth of America, and that over 70% of the people of America don't own enough to pay the debts that they owe. How many men ever went to a barbecue and would let one man take off the table what's intended for 9/10 of the people to eat? The only way you'll ever be able to feed the balance of the people is to make that man come back and bring back some of that grub he ain't got no business with.
under this oak, where one of our forebears, Evangeline, waited for her lover, Gabriel, who never came. This oak is an immortal spot. The entire world knows about this oak from the poem of Longfellow. But Evangeline is not the only one who has waited here in disappointment. No, no. Where are the schools that you have waited for your children to have but never come? Where are the roads and highways that you have sent your money to build but are no closer now than ever before? Evangeline wept bitter tears, but that only lasted one lifetime. Your tears in this land and around this oak have lasted for generations. Will you let me dry the tears of those who still weep?
How are you going to feed the balance of the people? What's Morgan and Baruch and Rockefeller and Mellon going to do with all that grub? They can't eat it. They can't wear the clothes. They can't live in the house. Give them a yacht. Give them a palace. Send them to Reno and give them a new wife when they want it. If that's what they want. But when they've got everything on the God's living earth that they can eat and they can wear and they can live in, and all that their children can live in and wear and eat and all their children's children can use, then we got to call Mr. Morgan and Mr. Mellon and Mr. Rockefeller back and say, come back here. Put that stuff back on this table here that you took away from here, that you don't need. Leave something else for the American people to consume. And that's the program. We're not going to destroy the Gulf Refining Company. We're not going to destroy the Standard Oil Company. But we're going to say that the limit of any one man's stock ownership in the Standard Oil Company is from $3 to $5 million to that individual, and that the balance of the people of America own the balance of what the Standard Oil Company is worth. All right.
My name is Huey P. Long, Jr. Like any good patriot, I was born in a log cabin. I would get up before the sun to help my daddy, and my sympathy has always gone to those who toil, and I have endeavored to help them. They say I'm the Karl Marx of the hillbillies. I'm no Karl Marx, but I do love the working man. Now you get that, type it up, and bring it in here when you do.
Every people out there, every neighbor of hers, when I'm there, man, masses of America, 75 to 80 to 85% of the people not only give up their property year after year, but they go further and further and further into economic slavery, to where the flesh and blood of the born and the unborn will never be able to raise the debt, let alone come back and rescue the property that they've lost from these depressions.
You know how for most of you, your pocketbooks are empty, your bellies are tight? They tell us we are even faced with communism. Why not? When 1% of the people control wealth. I'm not a communist. I would not take a single luxury away. But when we reach a point where some men have so many millions that another 100 or so means nothing to them, we are going to have to siphon off some of the water for our own little pool. That's God's law. Look it up in Leviticus. Well, we are going to restrict the piling up of wealth in the hands of the few, and we are going to give it to the people. Now, this is the chance for you to make your voices heard in Washington. We have created an organization called Share Our Wealth Society, and we have prepared a pamphlet for you, and we can send it to you for free. and the whole plan is set forth in it. So I'm appealing to you to organize a share our wealth society in your own community tonight or tomorrow and help me as your servant see that the government of this country is returned to the people.
And now, the corporate element of this state that were cheek for Joel, hand in hand with them, who profited by it, who ransacked this state for the element of their allies, are being told what they can do and what they can't do, what they will pay, what they can't keep from paying for the welfare of the people of Louisiana, and we expect to have this state ruled by the people and not by the lords and the interest of high finance.
Will the distinguished senator from wherever the hell he's from please yield the floor for 1 moment?
I will reluctantly yield the floor to the junior senator from Louisiana.
Thank you. Now, when I first came here to Washington 6 months ago, I felt that we were on a mission to save this country from the despair which is gripping it. But all I get is a good deal of dither and blather from both parties. Millions and millions of workers are out of work. Millions of farmers are losing their farms to the banks, and what are the banks going to do with them? Now, you listen to me. Stop fooling around. Break up the concentration of wealth in this country and redistribute it according to the Lord's plan. Or if you do not, listen. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Weep and howl.
Senator, what are you trying to do? Start a revolution?
No, sir, I'm trying to wake you all up.
Sir, you are not speaking for us.
Well, if I'm not speaking for y'all, I guess I'm speaking against you. The economy of this country is collapsing, and unless we do something about it, the people will be at those Capitol doors 6 months from now looking to string you scoundrels up. And unless you awaken, I'll be there tying the noose.
Then we start from the bottom, that the 25 or more million American families shall have a homestead, a home, and the comforts of a home, including an automobile and a radio, the things it takes in that house to live on. We say to America, 125 million, none shall be too big, none shall be too poor, none shall work too much, none shall be idle. No luxurious mansions empty, none walking the streets, none impoverished, none in pestilence, none in want, but in the land blessed by the smile of the Creator, with everything to be consumed, to be eaten, to be worn, that America will become a land sharing the fruits of the land, not for the favored few, not to satisfy greed, but that all may live in a land in which the Lord has provided an abundance sufficient for the luxury and convenience of the people in general, I think.
That was Huey Long, and that's who he was talking about. And that is a great figure in American politics. You know, he did amazing things, and he was definitely a Bonapartist, and it's a very, very important figure. Now, we're going to continue with the Jimmy Dore, Tucker Carlson interview. Towards the end, it gets very hard-hitting. Before we do that, I do want to remind you all that questions can be sent in the second half of the show. For the second half of the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Richard sent the first question. He'll be the first one to be answered. You can also do super chats. We're monetized. So yeah. All right. Well, let's continue with this great Tucker Carlson, Jimmy Dore interview. Then we'll do the roll call after it's over. Then I'll answer questions in the second half of the show. So here we go.
But I just want, but either Roosevelt, they're different, but like they have the same impulse, which is this system is out of whack and it's going to get taken down by force unless we adjust it a little bit. And I don't see Larry Fink is capable of doing that. Do you?
Not quite the opposite. Right? It's more, capitalism always at the end stage devolves into fascism, which is where we are. The surveillance state, these data centers, flock cameras. They built $80 billion for ICE to get the illegal immigrants. By the way, they're not.
I know.
And so why do they? So what is that police force? Well, it's for you.
Of course.
Right. And so when you wake up, and so now they're going to make you a terrorist. You're going to be an anti-technological terrorist, just like they had eco terrorists, people who, and so you're going to be the terrorist, and those prisons are for you because they're not getting. They want the illegal immigrants here because they want cheap labor. And it's always a joke. They're not getting rid of them. That's all that stuff where they're shooting people. That's all for show, right? That's not that you are the target. And that's what those prisons are for. And we got their own private Gestapo called ICE. And what could go wrong? You take 50,000 TGI Friday bouncers and give them guns, masks, and unmarked cars and turn them loose.
Well, because the truth is that illegal immigrants, the guys like hiring at a day rate out of, Home Depot parking lot, there's a lot of drunk driving, but in general, not that unruly a group.
Correct. Those are people looking to work.
You know who's unruly is like you. You're unruly. No, I'm serious. You're born here. You have a birthright. You feel totally entitled to demand that your government serve your interests because you own the government. Like you're a huge problem. You and people like you.
Well, that's why they tapped into my phone using Pegasus.
Actually?
Yeah, that actually happened. So when I spoke at the UN Security Council, I did it via Zoom. I was in Italy at the time, and it was on the anniversary of the Nord Stream pipeline bombing.
Oh, yes.
And so they asked me to speak Russia. And so I accepted, and I gave a speech, and I gave it to them, like you're all dupes and idiots if you think that this was done by Russia, and the fact that, Germany would bend their knee and let them to wreck their own economy. Now they're paying 2 and 3 times higher for energy, and to go along with this, and you're all morons. And I basically used that language. And so on the plane ride home, I had my laptop. At that time, I used to travel with my laptop. I don't anymore. And it said, MacBook now controls your iCloud account. And I was like, what is this? I don't even know what the heck. So I get off, I call my IT guy, who is a former military intelligence, right? And his whole job is to try to crack into companies' computer system to find vulnerabilities. So I call him and I tell him, I go, hey, did this happen? And he goes, oh my God, Jimmy, even I couldn't do that. And I said, what? And so I give him my computer, I give him my phone, and he said, that was Pegasus. And I go, well, who did this? He goes, it wasn't a person.
No.
This was a state actor.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so it happened immediately after I testified at the UN Security Council. And so that's why I have 2 phones now, right? So one's the phone. So now they got me, Tucker. By the way, if I ever become a threat, they got me. They either have all my compromising material and my iCloud on my computer, on my phone, or they planted something. So they got me.
Yeah. And, we've spoken at the United Nations before too. We did a press conference sponsored by the Russian mission. And I've spoken directly with Russian President Putin, and the way they've smeared and defamed CPI and called us every nasty name in the book and gone after me on a personal level. This is what happens when you're a target, when you go up against the imperialist monopolies, when you demand justice for working families, when you build an organization. That's what happens. That's what happens. And it's important to be aware of this. People don't seem to realize that, when deep state actors were going around and trying to get people to talk trash about CPI, they said, oh, CPI doesn't matter. CPI doesn't matter. We clearly matter. We clearly matter. Jimmy Dore matters, and Jimmy Dore has us on his show, and I've spoken with Putin, and we blocked the No Kings parade, and we matter. We matter. And, we have an atmosphere in CPI that is total free speech. People are allowed to speak up, if people have issues with our organization. But the effort to defame us and smear us came straight from the deep state. And that needs to be made abundantly clear. And a little later, he talks about Glenn Greenwald and what was done to Glenn Greenwald. And I look at what they're doing to Graham Plattner now. I look at what's been done to Chris Smalls. Now they're defaming him. This is how they go after people on a personal level, right? It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook, right? There's a classic episode of The Twilight Zone where these aliens come to the planet and they're so nice and they're giving everyone exactly what they want. And it's just so nice. And they're going to take people back to their home planet. And the aliens are just doing such nice things. And they ask the aliens, why are you doing those nice things? And they always point to this book they have called To Serve Man, To Serve Man. And then in the final scene of the episode, as the people are lining up to get on the spaceship, this classic moment in American television happens.
Mr. Chambers. Mr. Chambers, don't get on that ship. The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
No! No!
It's a cookbook.
That's what they want to do with every illiberal, anti-imperialist, revolutionary organization. They want you to think, it's a cookbook. Oh, no, it's a cookbook. They couldn't possibly be fighting for social justice. Oh, no, it's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. Right? And that's what they do. Right? So you have to be prepared for this. And I wrote a whole book about this called Khrushchevism, a study in psychological warfare. And we have amped up our organization. We have developed organizational technology and organizational capacity to withstand attacks like you wouldn't believe. And that's what they do. They want you to believe it's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. But anyway, let's continue this great Jimmy Dore interview. Here we go.
Right. So if you'll know if I'm arrested or if some big scandal comes out, it's because I now have become an actual threat.
No, that's so true. I did an interview with Glenn Greenwald last summer here, and he was tough on the foreign policy questions and tough on Netanyahu. Literally the next day.
That's exactly right.
This tape comes out of super embarrassing Glenn.
Yeah, which, Glenn, he's gay. He's a gay man. He did gay man stuff with another consenting adult, but they make it a scandal. And that's the game that they play. The deep state forces, these are perverted forces, and they think sex, it's all about sex, and they dig into people's private lives and humiliate them. And it's a really nasty, evil thing. And they did it to Graham Plattner now, and they've done it to other people. And you need to know what this is. You need to know what it is.
Greenwald sex tape, which I didn't watch, but I just want to say how much I love Glenn. Those aren't connected.
Of
By
course.
the way, the first person to defend him was Charlie Kirk, which is just incredible. Charlie
Kirk, the new Seth Rich. You're not allowed to ask questions about that.
Charlie Kirk is the evangelical, pretty darn anti-gay, and then Glenn Greenwald comes out with a gay sex tape, and Charlie Kirk is the first guy to be like, Glenn Greenwald's a good man. Man, I thought that was, makes me emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie had started to have an awakening.
Oh, you think?
He had a lot younger than I had it.
Yeah.
And so that's why they had to kill him. And when I say they, I mean multiple. There was a conspiracy to kill him. It wasn't some guy, Tyler Robinson, with his grandpa's rifle, which was never fired, which is why they couldn't find that rifle. You have to swallow so much stuff to believe the story that the establishment is pushing for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah. You have to think that this, first of all, a 30-06 bullet didn't take his head clean off or leave a drive-through window in the back of his neck. Somehow he had a miracle. His miracle bullet, remember that? Hey, can you give me an explanation of why his head didn't blow off without a miracle? Do you have an actual explanation? No. So, but it goes back to, so this guy gets to the campus. He drives 3. All of a sudden, he wakes up one day and goes, you know what? I'm going to commit the biggest public assassination in the last 60 years. He drives to the campus. He finds the open stairwell. It's open. Nobody's there. He brings the gun up, but it's too big, so he has to take it apart and put it in his backpack. Still too big for his backpack, so he has to put it down his pant legs, is what they tell. But then if he did, he couldn't go up the steps because he couldn't bend his knees. So I don't know how he got it up there. Nobody will tell me. So he gets up there, and then he changes his clothes. He's up on top of that roof for 10 minutes. That's according to the governor. He was up there for 8 to 10 minutes. Nobody sees him. The cops don't see him. The $1 million security team doesn't see him. Nobody sees him except people in the crowd did see him. And they don't tell you that. People, just like in Butler, Pennsylvania, people in the crowd saw him. Guess who didn't see him? The cops, the local cops, the state cops, the Secret Service. People see him. So, and then he puts the gun together. He lines up the shot, puts a scope on it. By the way, if that scope was on it, he couldn't fire that gun because of the safe. Anyway, so he lines it up, takes the shot, hits it perfectly, takes the gun apart, leaves the screwdriver there, puts it under a towel, Spider-Man's his way off the top of a building, runs across campus with the gun apparently under a towel. Nobody sees this. He runs into the woods, puts the gun back together again without the screwdriver. He's a regular MacGyver, this guy. And then he hides the gun in the backyard of a house owned by Palantir. And if you think anything else besides that, you're a crazy Jew-hating conspiracy nut. Do you know that they had the gun sniffing dogs, right? Which they can sniff a gun that was fired a week earlier in the rain, right? They were looking all over. They didn't find it. The FBI shows up a minute later. We got the gun. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, you could. Baron Coleman's been doing great work on this, and he got the police transmitter, all that stuff. He got that. That's available. And so it wasn't until the FBI showed up. Oh, well, we got it. No, the local police couldn't find it. And the dog sniffers couldn't find it. They can find it. And they couldn't. But then the FBI showed up and they found it in the exact place. So, and now they won't even release that to the defense team. They're still holding on to it. And then, of course, then he decides to text his lover. Instead of waiting for him to get home, it's only a 3-hour drive. He's like, you know what? He said, I wanted to take this secret to my grave. First of all, he talks like he's reading he's writing a Jane Austen novel, my love. And then he says, I wanted to take this secret to my grave, but fuck it. I'm just gonna leave it here on a text message to you so the FBI can find it. And so what was supposed to happen was he was supposed to go out in a blaze of glory. Because the original text messages that they that he wrote said, I don't want to go to prison. I'm not going to go out. I don't want to be dragged through the courts. I'm going to go. So he was supposed to get shot, just like in Butler Crooks. And he was supposed to get killed. He didn't. He went and turned himself in, which screwed up their plan. And so they had to rewrite those text messages. Did you know that there's text messages 1 and text messages 2.0? So they had to rewrite this. Yeah, that's all. And they said that he confessed on Discord or on Reddit. And of course, now we know for a fact that he was already in custody when they said that he did that. So what guy shows up, turns himself in, pleads the fifth, I'm not talking to the cops until my lawyer gets there, but then he goes on the internet and gives a confession. Okay, so this is obviously a setup, and you're not allowed to ask questions about it. And if you are, you are attacking a grieving widow. And that's, again, when did Jackie O ever say, quit looking in, stop? Quit looking into who killed my husband. Never. That's not what happens. And that's not how you grieve, by the way. I remember when my dad died, my mom immediately bought a gold sequin pants outfit, started carrying sparklers around and selling T-shirts. And my friends were like, Jimmy, what's with your mom? I'm like, she's grieving. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And Candace Owens is in Russia right now. And Laura Loomer is losing her mind about Candace Owens being in Russia at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And at the same forum, there's a whole delegation from the White House that gave greetings to President Putin on behalf of President Trump. But Laura Loomer is convinced it's a big scandal that Candace Owens is in Russia. But there's a whole team of Trump people there, and they've announced that they're going to start building the bridge over the Bering Sea. Wow, a lot is going on, and we love Jimmy Dore, and that interview was really amazing, and it's about everything that we're about in the Center for Political Innovation. So I'm glad we had the time to just go through some highlights. I would recommend watching the whole thing. We didn't show you the whole interview tonight. We just showed you highlights. I mean, there was a lot in there about spirituality and the power of dreams and psychoanalysis. There was a lot in there about a lot of different issues that he talked about the pandemic and about all kinds of different things. So I would really recommend checking out the interview. Jimmy Dore is awesome, and we absolutely love him. So we're going to do our roll call now. That's where we find out who's on the other side of the camera, who's watching at home. Then after that, I will answer your questions. And so far, we only have 2 questions that have come in. Unfortunately, it looks like the Rumble stream was abruptly ended. I don't know how that happened, but regardless, we're still here on YouTube. And you can send questions. Super chats work. We're monetized, so you can send super chats. Best way to send questions is to go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. You can't send Rumble rants because Rumble shut down. I don't know why. Hopefully we're back next time. But please send questions for the second half of the show. All right. Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Penny in Minnesota. Good to see you. Fakibu in Montreal. Fakibufu. Michael in Bayonne, good to see you, Michael. We played down to Old Maui last night in honor of your Hawaii experiences. Brian in Dayton, Paul in Brentwood, LV in Nevada, Lawrence Johnson in Chicago. Wow, they're coming in fast. Names and locations, names and locations. Jake in Portland, Michael in Bayonne, Chuck in Florida, names and locations, names and locations. Joe Gutierrez in Central California, Sagittarius, Los Angeles, Bradley Briggs, Eric in Lockhart, Texas. All right, everyone's here tonight. Patch in Arizona, Jane in New Zealand, Melbourne, Australia, behind y'all. Tyler, good to see you. Everybody's here tonight. Wow, it's a party. Names and locations, names and locations. Joe is somewhere in Africa. Bum, 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 bum. Where in Africa is Joe? Joe is somewhere in Africa. South, Huey Long is here himself after we played a long clip of him and John Goodman. Names and locations. Tyler in Missouri, Placerville, California. Good to see you. Sacramento. Baruz Al-Masayan in Boston. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us here tonight? Names and locations, names and locations. This is a full house tonight. Well over 200 people have been around. Eric in Atlanta. Eric in Atlanta, good to see you. Names and locations, names and locations from Iran. Baruz, good to see you. Good to see you. I've been to Iran many times. I think you banned me from New Mexico. Oh, I don't ban people from states. The new name for Hillary is Laura. Denise in Maryland. Good to see you. 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 Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Justin in Salt Lake City. Good to see you, Justin. It's been a while, but it's good to see you. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. CPI is on it. The Center for Political Innovation is marching ahead. Now, folks, we just announced Bendigo, Australia. Oh, I'm great. Well, thank you. So are you. We just announced tonight, John McCarthy in Chicago. We just announced tonight that we are having a France out of Africa rally in Chicago on August 14th. It's very, very exciting. France out of Africa, stand with AES, the Union of Sahel States. Ibrahim Traore is the future of the African continent. He is a great anti-imperialist leader. Our member Penny Arcos in Minnesota, who's watching right now, wrote a whole book about the great African leader Ibrahim Traore called Africa's Flame, the Rise of Ibrahim Traore. And we are going to have a rally against the French that are trying to recolonize Africa. And it's going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to be there. We are trying to get as many of our allies on board, as many big speakers to come to this rally downtown Chicago on August 14th. Now, that's going to be part of our 7-day program. Our national convention will be the following day in Chicago, and we're bringing everybody to Chicago. We're bringing people to Chicago. We're having our national training program to build an anti-imperialist movement August 12th through 19th. August 12th through 19th. It's going to be absolutely great. Patricia in Massachusetts. There we go. August 12th through 19th, and that is in Chicago. We'll be there for the whole week. Our national convention will be on the 15th, the following day, and we're going to a whole week of activities, August 12th through 19th. It's going to be really, really awesome. So register today for the National 7-Day Training Program if you'd like to participate. It's very, very important. That's the registration form right there. You think we haven't thought of that, Cameron? We are all over that. We're looking to feature Uhuru very prominently in the rally if possible, if they are available. And interviews. I'm available for interviews. First name, last name @gmail.com. No spaces or periods. You can reach out to me. I am definitely available for interviews. But lots of exciting things are happening. So now we're at the part of the show where I answer people's questions, and we just had another super chat come in, which is good. Which is very, very good. The best way to send questions is buymeacoffee.com. We only have one question from buymeacoffee.com, so I will answer it. Richard Unanimous said, do you think European countries should do mass deportations? I heard some right-winger in Sweden argue it would cost Sweden less to rebuild Syria and deport every Syrian because Syrians are leeches or something. I'm all for rebuilding Syria, but why the rush about deportations in Europe? I know George Galloway is for some of the use of the Royal Navy to protect against migrant boats. I'm 50-50. Well, I didn't hear that about George Galloway, and George Galloway's awesome. We love George Galloway. He does great stuff, and George Galloway is a great guy, and I haven't heard him say that, and I don't know about that, but I will say that the mass deportations thing, I agree with what Jimmy Dore said in there. ICE it's not for immigrants, it's for us. And they're not afraid of, a guy working in the Home Depot department, pickup parking lot wanting to get gigs. They're afraid of the American people, and that ICE is part of a gradual encroachment on our civil liberties. And that ICE, this is Bonapartism, divisions in the ruling class, the same old story. And I am not for what ICE is doing. I'm not for the ICE raids. I don't think that's the answer, but I also don't celebrate mass migration like it's a good thing. It is not a good thing. It's a sign of imperialism and decay. And the fact that people are leaving their homes in big numbers is not a good thing. And I refuse to go along with the left just saying, oh yeah, woo, mass migration. No, it's a bad situation. But political repression is not the answer. Political repression just makes it worse. What we need is economic development. If we started trading with countries on the basis of win-win cooperation, if we joined the rising new BRICS economy around the world, if we started building up physical economy and investing in countries around the world, there wouldn't be a crisis of mass migration. Plus, America wouldn't be hollowed out from within either. We'd start getting wealthier, and different countries would start getting wealthier. You think about what China has done. The Belt and Road Initiative of China is a great anti-immigration policy. People stay in their country because they have economic opportunity. That's ultimately what needs to happen. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. That's what we need in this country. And we need to join the rising new economy, break away from colonialism. We need to join the rising new world. I actually have a new book out that's been out. It's my new book that I've been going on every show to talk about. So yesterday, or today, actually, I did an interview that aired today with the Ron Paul Institute about my book, Imperialism and Anti-Imperialism. Daniel McAdams, who was in that crowd cheering for Scott Ritter, he had me on his show to talk about imperialism and anti-imperialism. I've been on Kim Iverson about the show. Great episode I did with her. I did a show with Academic Agent about my new book, Imperialism and Anti-Imperialism. And it looks like tomorrow I'm on with Sabi Sobs. I'll be on with Sabi Sobs tomorrow. So tune in for that. This book is really exciting. It has everything you'll need to know about CPI in it. Speeches. It's got well over a decade of work educating about economics and anti-imperialism and the project to build the Center for Political Innovation, what it is that we stand for. So go and get a copy of my new book. I really urge you to do that because this is the book that people need. This is the book that will show you what we're all about, what our movement is all about. You'll understand imperialism and you'll understand how embedded CPI is in the anti-imperialist movement. We are America's anti-imperialist movement, and we are building a movement to demand a government of action that will fight for working families. And who else is blocking the No Kings Parade? Cameron's in the chat. He gets it. No one else blocked the No Kings Parade but us. And that was on international television. And that was promoted by all kinds of sources. We blocked the No Kings Parade in New York City. Who else is leading the delegation to the World Youth Festival? Who else is having UN press conferences about the Uhuru movement? Who else wrote a book about the Houthis that we distributed in bulk to raise awareness about this anti-imperialist Shia Muslim organization in Yemen, Ansar Allah, and what they really stand for? Who else is raising awareness about why we don't need a new American Years of Lead, and why we need to not celebrate the left adventurous terrorism of Luigi Mangione? Who else is doing what we're doing? The Center for Political Innovation is America's anti-imperialist movement. We are doing what nobody else is doing. And if you're with us, you're on the right page. You need to become a member and you need to get involved, because we need a movement urgently. That's what Jimmy Dore was saying in the interview. You know, we need people in the streets. We need strikes and demonstrations. And if Bernie Sanders had called his supporters out there to occupy Wall Street to demand Medicare for all, things would be very different. We're not going to be able to just podcast our way out of this. We're not going to be able to just vote our way out of this, unfortunately, though voting may play a role. Ultimately, what we need in America is a movement to demand a government of action that fights for working families, a new America beyond imperialism. The Center for Political Innovation is where it's at. Yep, that is us. We are the Center for Political Innovation, and we are where it's at. And we're reaching the end of this stream. We have 2 more questions that have come in, and super chats are appreciated. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com. But we're approaching our last, it's going to get towards the end here. So unless you all start asking questions, this is going to start wrapping up pretty soon. John McCarthy, he said, wasn't Huey Newton named after Huey Long? Yes. Huey Newton's autobiography, Revolutionary Suicide, talks about how Huey Newton's parents, his father, lived in Louisiana. And Huey Newton's father was very impressed with how Huey Long enabled Black women to become nurses. Because at the time, Black women were not allowed to go to nursing school. But Huey Long got on the radio and gave a speech about how white women shouldn't have to handle, Black men in insane asylums and things like that, and mental hospitals. And because of that, he changed the law. And in the Jim Crow South, he was able to get Black women the right to become nurses, and how that, being a nurse is a very good paying job. And that was a big victory for Black women in the context of Jim Crow. And the crazy thing is, the woke left attacks me for defending Huey Long, and the Communist Party in their smear piece, they attack me for defending Huey Long, and they call Huey Long a fascist and a racist. Huey Long rose up to prominence in the politics of Louisiana by fighting for the rights of Roman Catholics. He was Protestant, but supporting Roman Catholics against the Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan ran the Democrat Party of Louisiana. They were anti-Catholic, and Huey Long fought the Klan. On top of that, Huey Long enabled Black people to register to vote. And in fact, his Share Our Wealth movement had a number of Black ministers that were officers in the organization. So Huey Long, he didn't overturn Jim Crow. That was, obviously not something one could do at the time. And as far as a governor of a southern state during that era, he was about as anti-Jim Crow and pro-Black as you could get. Enabled Black women to become nurses, had Black ministers become leaders of his national anti-capitalist organization, Share Our Wealth movement, fought for the rights of Catholics, denounced the Ku Klux Klan, was hated by the Klan. Huey Long was very, very much a figure who was against Jim Crow as much as you could be in that context. And that's what people don't get. And actually, the coup before he was assassinated, there was a coup attempt against him. A section of the state militia tried to overthrow him, and they compared him to Lincoln, and they compared him to the Reconstruction. They said he's a dictator just like Reconstruction. So the attack on Huey Long came from the right. It came from the ruling elite, who saw him as too much of a populist. Huey Long was not a communist. Because there was no labor movement in Louisiana. There wasn't. It was largely an agrarian state. There was very little factory and industry. And he fought for small farmers, and he built infrastructure. And the main way that he paid for it was by taxing the Standard Oil Company, the Rockefellers. Roosevelt was in an alliance with the Rockefellers, and the Communist Party was building labor unions. So he was fighting the Rockefellers and opposing Roosevelt. Roosevelt was in alliance with the Rockefellers, and the communists were supporting Roosevelt. So it's a little bit of a mess, and that's what happens when there are divisions in the ruling class. But Huey Long basically built a state-run economy in Louisiana. In 1935, when he was assassinated, the economy of Louisiana was centered around the government. Government control of oil revenue. He was taxing the oil revenue of the Rockefellers at a very high rate, and he built a whole bunch of state-run enterprises. And it was basically Venezuela in Louisiana. And actually, I'm not the first person to have said that. Greg Palast said that in his book, that Huey Long was basically Hugo Chavez. And that, Hugo Chavez put government control over the oil of Venezuela. He used that money to build a huge state apparatus in Venezuela and to control the economy. That's basically what Huey Long did. He didn't nationalize the oil. He just taxed it at a very, very high rate and used that money to build up state power. He made Louisiana into kind of a state-run economy, and he subsidized small farmers, and he wiped out illiteracy in the state of Louisiana. He provided literacy and wiped out illiteracy. He paved the roads. He built bridges all over the state. He gave free school textbooks to children. And he just hired unemployed people, and thousands of unemployed people were hired to work for him. He also started his own private security service and his own private, militia, kind of like the Bolivarian militias. You could say Huey Long was kind of like the Hugo Chavez, of Louisiana. And that's why they killed him. And there's actually a country song that came out after Huey Long was killed. Oh, they shot Huey Long in Louisiana when he walked up the Capitol steps. Yes, they killed Huey Long in Louisiana, where he fought against the capitalists. So the fact that the Communist Party of America, which is controlled by the FBI, called me a Nazi and a fascist for supporting Huey Long shows how stupid they are, right? And the fact that that's their argument, that I like the most pro-black governor of Louisiana before Jim Crow was overturned. I mean, the Communist Party USA is run by fads, and that's a whole nother story. I don't want to get down in the mud tonight, but yeah, Huey Long was an awesome guy, and I encourage people to check him out, and I like him. Now, I believe the public should push for an Iran deal that involves us alone. Let Israel fight this war alone if they want. Agree? Well, look, I will stick to what I have said. There's not going to be an Iran deal. Look, Israel runs America, and they control our politics, and they will never allow an Iran deal that says Iran has the right to support Hezbollah, or says that Iran has the right to support the Houthis. Not going to happen. Meanwhile, Iran, they depend at this point. They're fighting for their lives. They depend on the Islamic Revolutionary Guards. And the Islamic Revolutionary Guards are tied in with the Houthis and tied in with Hezbollah. And so Iran would be committing suicide if they were to sign some deal and say, all right, no more support for Hezbollah. All right, no support for the Houthis. They're never going to do that. There's not going to be a deal. Trump needs to just realize the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and that if he continues, they're going to close the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. Do I need to put the map on again? I'll put the map on again. Right? It's really the Houthis that are the deciding factor here. Right? I wrote a whole book. Who are the Houthis? What are they fighting for? We've distributed this book in bulk across America. This is our book on the Houthis. And this is what you need to understand. I've shown this on recent streams, and I will show it again because you need to see it. You need to see it. Right? All right. So these are the two straits that we're dealing with. All right. You got the Strait of Hormuz that's up there by Iran. Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz. And that's why airplane, flights are about 4 times what they were last year, right? And that's what's making it stressful as we figure out our summer plans, because I don't know how we're going to afford all these flights, because we need to raise money as CPI. But but on that note, we need to raise money with CPI. But anyway, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That's why the oil prices are so high. But there's this other strait that's right next to Yemen, the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. All right. And the Houthis are ready to close it down. And they are ready to go into the Red Sea and close the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. They are ready to close it down. And if Iran is attacked again, they will do that. And if you think the economy is screaming now, you just wait until the Houthis close the Strait of Bab al-Mandab. So Trump needs to declare victory. He needs to just say, we won. Oh, I killed the supreme leader. I did it. Oh, they're never going to get a nuclear bomb, because they never were going to get one to begin with. They've never tried to get one. Oh, he say, I got them. They're never going to get a nuclear bomb, and he needs to run away. That's what Trump needs to do. Run away. There's not going to be a deal that Israel will ever allow America to sign with Iran, and there's not going to be a deal proposed that Iran is going to ever be able to sign. Trump needs to just declare victory and run. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But I don't see any more questions as of now. No one seems to have sent any more questions in. So I guess we'll wrap this up. We're not going as late as we usually do. Usually we're on here late into the night, but we started on time. We had a big crowd here to talk about Jimmy Dore. Join the Center for Political Innovation. Get a copy of my new book. This book is really important. This was #1, top new release on Amazon in the category of socialism and communism. Oh, there's a coffee that's come in. Is there? I don't have it. Oh, wait, that's weird. It went to my spam, but Penny sent a coffee. China-U.S. research voyage. Okay, hold on. All right, we'll put that on. Sorry, I don't know why that went to my spam, Penny. I'm marking as not spam. And yeah, that's weird. Okay, so we have one more. Penny bought a coffee. So it's about China. What is it? China. What is it? Charting the future, China-U.S. voyage. All right. We'll put that on. Penny likes to follow Chinese news. China is a country that's broken out of imperialism and has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. They have a planned economy, but they utilize the market to make their economy stronger. So we like to talk about any of China's achievements, et cetera. Somebody else sent a coffee. That's interesting. All right. Let's see if I got it right, because I don't, I have a coffee from Richard. I have one from... All right, so here, we'll do the charting video from Penny, and I hopefully will get the notification for this other coffee that's come in. That's all right. So here we go. This is China's U.S. voyage, the charting. It's about a ship or something. Thanks for sending this, Penny. Penny's always following what's going on in the news out of China, so we're just waiting for that to come up, waiting for the video to show up on the desktop, and then I'll upload it into the stream. But yeah, Mike, you said you sent 2. I don't see it. I might have to go to buymeacoffee.com. That's very odd, but we'll put Penny's video on. And thank you, Mike. I will go and look, because that's odd that I don't see that. But yeah, let's put on Penny's video, and then I'll just go to the Buy Me a Coffee website. Thanks for the heads up there. But yeah, okay, here's Penny's video. All right, here we go.
Scientific expedition has come to an end, but it also marks the beginning of a new chapter in collaboration. Aboard the research vessel, 20 outstanding young scientists, 10 from China and 10 from the United States, worked side by side to address pressing challenges related to ocean health and climate change. Organizers of the joint initiative, titled A Shared Voyage, convened in Shanghai to mark the mission's successful completion.
When it comes to technology, what is best for the whole, what is best for humanity? These intelligences can be used to elevate and improve human living standards enormously, or they can be used to destroy everything. What will determine that is saying, how together can we make this wonderful? Can we be brought together by the common humanity of what's good for us all and nature? If we're not operating in a way that's good for the whole, other species, other environment, we're threatening ourselves.
Within about 3 hours, everybody was talking and chatting. By the end, they were dancing and singing together. That humanity showed up perfectly. They're hugging and kissing as they leave the boat, and that seed will spawn and spread amongst their respective.
I remember walking through the streets of Beijing when I was 11,
and there were cracked sidewalks. And then I come here and I look at just the booming, incredible modernity. It's what the world should be like. So it gives me hope, frankly, for the whole world.
You know, the very fact that it happened at all is, I think, the major achievement to get 10 American and 10 Chinese students in the same place in a time of this geopolitical era where distrust and tension really has pulled apart collaboration and partnerships for the United States and China. But we're doing this in the hardest areas, which is science and climate. The greatest outcome is that they've now formed these bonds. They're doing what even politicians, what even diplomats can't do.
It's an investment that will see the next generation soar under one mission: to forge a scientific and cultural language that knows no borders.
My name is Xi Jingtong, and I'm an undergraduate student in Tongji University studying in marine science. This vessel is so special because it combines scientific research with media. The ocean covers like 70% of the Earth's surface, so we have to let more people and the public to know about marine science. I teach American students Chinese calligraphy, and I perform Tibet dance to show the Chinese traditional culture.
Hi, I'm Natalie Lafont. I'm a PhD student at Harvard University studying organismic and evolutionary biology.
And hi, I'm Benjamin Acosta. I am a PhD student at Columbia University, and I'm studying biological oceanography.
I think my biggest takeaway will be the friendships that I leave with. I formed some friendships that I think will last my entire lifetime. I've shed many tears today to leave my Chinese colleagues. We've shared a lot over these past few weeks and spent so much time together, both doing scientific research and just like understanding each other and our cultures. And so I'm just so grateful for the experience.
And echoing Natalie, I think the best parts were meeting and getting to know all the students. The other thing I think I really took away is just how connected we all are in terms of what we're studying. We all have a deep respect and love for the ocean, and I think that really binds us together.
This voyage was about marine science, but its most important discovery wasn't in the ocean. It was the human connection forged right here on deck. In today's world, that personal understanding, driven by addressing shared challenges, is perhaps the strongest current, pulling both nations toward a more cooperative future.
Yep. That's a great video. Now, we just had a good question that came in from Tyler. And like I said, if anyone's got any more questions, buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin or send a super chat. Tyler asked a good question, and we're wrapping this up pretty soon. So send them now or else you'll have to wait till next time. But Tyler asked a very, very good question. He said, how do you define a movement? Well, that is one of the biggest weaknesses of the way American history is taught, is that we don't teach people what movements are, right? We think that the civil rights movement was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. got up and gave a speech in Washington and said, I have a dream. Well, no, the civil rights movement was thousands and thousands of people boycotting businesses and refusing to ride the bus and, threatening to put the bus company out of business in Montgomery, Alabama. It was freedom schools where people went down and learned the art of civil disobedience and went into lunch counters and sat down and made the police drag them out. It was whole activist community groups that learned to work together and learned to do activity. What defines a movement is an upsurge of participation by the population in politics. I think of the unemployment movement of the 1930s, the early 1930s, where they had the hunger marches and thousands of people in unemployment councils protected each other from evictions, provided food for the hungry and the unemployed. And from there, they also, in addition to that, they organized national hunger marches. They organized big demonstrations of the unemployed. They disrupted city council meetings. They went into the halls of Congress to demand unemployment relief. That unemployed movement was a movement. I think about the labor movement in the 1930s, the sit-down strike wave, where workers occupied their factories, demanding the right to form unions. They formed associations, labor unions, unemployment councils, and those associations involved people coming together and carrying out activity to advance their own needs and their own agenda, and coming together and working together. An upsurge of participation of people learning to exercise their power. That's how I would define a movement. And a movement is what the ruling elite are really afraid of. One of the main anti-totalitarian books that you will read is called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. And it came out in the 1950s. And it's one of these books about how totalitarianism, like communism, but also fascism, and also all these mass movements, they are a danger, and we need to oppose mass movements. And in that book, Eric Hoffer says the greatest example of a mass movement is Christianity. And so, just to further answer your question, Tyler, what is a mass movement? I am going to put on the screen, I am going to put a verse from the book of Acts. And I think this really tells you, Christianity, when it started, it was not intended to be, something that people just believed as they followed the establishment. When Jesus started the Christian church, it was very much understood to be a revolutionary movement. If I can just get this graphic on the screen here, hold on, image. This is from the book of Acts. If you have a King James Bible, in the book of Acts, it tells, this is after the death of Christ. This is Acts 2, verses 43 through 47. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. And all that believed were together, and they had all things in common, and sold all their possessions and good, and parted them to all men, and every man as every man had need. And they continued daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, and did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. That Christianity was a movement of action, right? It was a movement of action. Many wonders and signs were done. And it was working people coming together and caring for each other and making sure that none had need, and giving to people that were, in need, every man as to his need, and continuing to break bread daily and eat their meat in gladness and singleness of heart, and gathering in public places and loudly praising God and putting out their message and having favor with all the people. And because of the action that they were engaging in, feeding people, many wonders and signs coming together, because of what they were doing every day, their numbers grew and grew and expanded, because people are attracted to action. And that is the truth. If you want to build a movement, action. It's all about action, right? People are attracted to action. And that's right there. Christianity was, you could say, it was one of the first mass movements in history. Now, at the coming up CPI event, there are two little stories. They're in the big CPI textbook, Out of the Movement to the Masses, and I also republished them in my book, Mystical Stalinism. There are two little stories that were published by the Communist Party in the 1930s. One is called The Story of Jim, and it comes from the pamphlet You Cannot Kill the Working Class by Angela Hamden. And the other is called The Story of Mr. Grossip, and it comes from Labor's Untold Story. Both of them are in our CPI textbooks, and they're both reprinted in Mystical Stalinism. And at our gathering in Chicago, we're going to have both of them read out loud. And I call them the two Stalinist parables. And they're two stories about an individual who joins the movement, the communist movement, the unemployed movement mainly, but the communist-led unemployed movement. And one of them is a racist in the Jim Crow South, and one of them is a grumpy old man, a grumpy carpenter who loses his job. And both of them end up joining the Communist Party. And they're beautiful little stories. They're true about Mr. Grossip, and he lived in the Chicago area, and about the story of Jim, who lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And they're deeply moving. And I read them. I read them on a stream. I read the entire thing out loud, and you can hear my voice. I get quite emotional. There's something beautiful about mass movements. When people get involved in the struggle, it changes them. I think about my own mother. My own mother, the first political thing I ever did is when I went on strike with my mom. My mom went on strike. I was a kid, and it changed my mom, right? My mom is not a big political person, but when she was on strike as a librarian with the other librarians demanding security protection at the job, it changed her as a person. Movements change people. Movements change people. And, we absolutely need a movement now more than ever. We need a movement. That is what this country urgently, urgently needs. And I have said over and over again, the last thing, the main thing that will prevent a movement is political violence. The murder of Charlie Kirk, the murder carried out by Luigi Mangione, allegedly, if we start having political violence, lone wolf terrorism, we won't have a movement because people will be too afraid to get shot. And it's a psyop right now. They're trying to incite people to engage in terrorism, left adventurism. And this is what they did in Italy with the years of lead. The years of lead in Italy, that's how they kept Italy in NATO. There was a movement in Italy of the Communist Party, of the Italian social movement, and the right and the left, and they were demanding to leave NATO. And so the CIA funded the terrorist groups on the far right, and then it funded the Red Brigades on the far left, and there were bombings and killings, and nobody knew who was on what side. And now today, Italy is still in NATO. And I wrote this book, The Danger of American Years of Lead, about this. I was on Kim Iverson's show to talk about it and all of this. And I just published a section of it on the CPI website. With a lot of graphics to go with it. And the section of it that we published on the CPI website, it's called Luigi Mangione, the New Abstract Painter. And I talk about the psychological impact of abstract art, how it makes you feel disorganized. It emphasizes, explosive emotions and rather than clear ideas, how the CIA funded abstract art to counter social realism for the same reason that they are promoting Luigi Mangione. He is the new abstract painter. Luigi Mangione is the new Jackson Pollock, being funded by the very same forces to serve the very same agenda. They don't want you to see that beautiful image of John Brown in the state capitol. They want you to see Jackson Pollock splattering paint on a canvas. And they don't want you to hear about, the Gus Hall, and they don't want you to hear about the mass organizing that has gone on in this country, William Z. Foster and Paul Robeson. They want you to know about Luigi Mangione, who was mad, and so he just killed somebody on the street. They're trying to get you to think in a pessimistic, emotionally driven way, rather than a disciplined, optimistic, and constructive way. And this is a quote from my book on it. I said, giving publicity to Mangione, presented as the pretty-faced, tragic hunger artist who displays the widespread negative emotions with an act of ugly, cathartic violence with no stated demand or goal, is very safe. It boosts all the negative emotions, the bitterness, the feelings of being defeated, the desire to cathartically lash out, all the ugly components of an ugly painting, all necessary to induce a psychological state of lassitude among dissidents in the long term. Right? And that is what is going on. They want to foment senseless political violence, adventurous terrorism, that's not got any goal. It's not got any program. It's just about, getting your anger out as we all feel more and more defeated. We've got to reject political violence. No one should have ever celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk, no matter how much they disagreed with him. And Luigi Mangione, if he did it, he's not a hero. I think there's a good chance he might be innocent. But the idea that he did it and this is awesome, no, it's not. A mass movement. Imagine if instead of him killing allegedly one CEO, if hundreds of people had gone to the headquarters of United Healthcare and blocked the doors and joined arms in an act of civil disobedience like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the police had been called, and one by one they had to arrest them. And all the TV news had come there and said, what's going on? All these thousands of people are getting arrested in front of United Healthcare. And those people had been Democrats and Republicans and socialists and libertarians and others that were against the health insurance racket. And they learned from each other. And they learned from their political differences, and kind of a new synthesis of politics emerged that different people from different strata, working class people from rural areas, working class people from urban centers had come together and learned from each other and carried out acts of disruption and built a movement that would have changed the conversation, that would have inspired people, People would have gotten more active. People would have been inspired. People would have built connections. Other people would have swung into motion. It would have been energetic, and it would have changed the energy of American society. But that's not what happened. What happened instead is one kid went out and killed somebody. And so we can sit there and go, I'm mad about my health care. And that jerk who runs it, well, he got his. He got shot. My life sucks. And now he got killed. I got some revenge. And then you can go back to your miserable life and be bitter, right? That's, we need Acts 2:43-47, building a movement, bringing people together, many wonders and signs, and adding daily that kind of spiritual power and energy that comes from working people realizing that they can change society, realizing that they have the power to do things and that they can awaken and they can learn from each other and they can carry out operations and they can change the world. That's what we need. Many wonders and signs adding to their number daily, spiritual power and energy moving. That's what we need. We don't need an angry, murderous temper tantrum where somebody got hurt and we can all just go back to our lives and be miserable. And that is an important thing to understand. And this is true tactically. This is true politically. This is also true spiritually. The energy that flows from an abstract painting, from a baby, having diarrhea all over a canvas, and the energy that flows from John Brown and this beautiful, beautiful mural this is the mural that hangs in the state capitol building of the state of Kansas, right? I gotta get rid of some images here. All right, hold on. The image, this is called The Tragic Prelude. This is a work of social realism that was put up in the Kansas state capitol building during the presidency of Roosevelt. The Works Progress Administration hired unemployed artists. They hired an artist to paint this beautiful painting of an activist, an abolitionist, a guy who was building a movement, who went out to Kansas to fight against slavery. And he's got a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. And he says, "You shall not pass." People are saying John Brown was violent. Yes, this isn't a question of pacifism. This is a question of building a movement. And John Brown built a movement. He was part of a mass movement, one of the biggest movements this country's ever seen, the abolitionist movement. He wasn't an angry guy who went and killed somebody. He built a movement, and his movement went out to Kansas and fought for Kansas to be not a slave state, but a free state. And his movement tried to seize Harper's Ferry so that they could distribute firearms, and they were ready to launch an uprising against the slaveholders. Now, it was a noble attempt. It was not successful, but it's not the same as a cold-blooded act of murder just designed to hurt somebody so we can all go back to our lives. It was a mass movement act, and it didn't work, but it was certainly good. And during the, just a little side note, right? So just so you know, right? Many people know that there's a song called the Battle Hymn of the Republic. It's probably one of the most well-known American patriotic songs. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. So how did that song start? That song went through 3 evolutions, and actually 4, because now there's the Union song Solidarity Forever. So maybe 4 incarnations. That song started out as a Christian tent revival song. That the Second Great Awakening, my ancestor, Charles G. Finney, from New York, right? He lived in New York. My mom's last name is Finney. That's my mother's maiden name. Founder of Oberlin College. Charles G. Finney was a pastor in New York City. Oh, I've got to take out more images. Hold on. Was a pastor in New York City. My ancestor. He was a pastor in New York City, and he gave anti-slavery sermons constantly. He knew that slavery was just immoral, and so he gave constant anti-slavery sermons. And so they ran him out of the city because Wall Street was making a lot of money from slavery. He refused to give communion to anyone who was involved in the slave trade. So they ran him out of New York City. So he set up in upstate New York, and he decided he was going to start preaching outside with a tent. And a lot of other pastors did the same thing. And to get people to come to his tent revival meetings, they would sing. They would go around the town. They'd have groups of people like a choir going around the town singing to try and get people to come to the tent revival meetings. And one of the songs that the people sang to get people to come to the tent revival meetings was, "Hey, brothers, will you meet us? Hey, brothers, will you meet us? Hey, brothers, will you meet us on Canaan's salty shore?" And that's what they were singing. And basically it was, are you going to go to heaven when you die, right? And they would be walking up and down the town when they would come to a town to organize a revival meeting, and they would sing this song, basically asking everyone on the street as they're going by, are you going to go to heaven when you die? Hey, brother, will you meet us? Will you meet us? We're going to heaven. Are you saved? Are you going to go to heaven as well? So it was a tent revival song. But then after John Brown was killed, it started out, there was a group of Union Army soldiers in the Union Army, and their sergeant was named John Brown. And it just happened to have the same name as the great anti-slavery fighter. And so they made up kind of a silly song to that tune, John Brown something, about their sergeant. And then somebody said, hey, John Brown is the same name as this great anti-slavery fighter. And so a kind of a joke song they made up about their sergeant turned into John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. His truth is marching on. And it became the most popular song that Union Army soldiers would sing. They would say, we're continuing the revolutionary activities of John Brown. We are John Brown soldiers. Maybe John Brown is dead, but we, as in our mobilization to smash the slaveocracy, we are continuing John Brown's great mission. And then Abraham Lincoln realized that they had a little bit of a problem, right? Which is that John Brown was executed for treason. And Lincoln was constantly trying to convince people that the war was not about slavery, because there were various people that were not against slavery, but, you know, that he wanted to be on their side. And so Abraham Lincoln said, okay, we've got a problem here. All of our soldiers are going to sing, you know, singing the song of a violent revolutionary, a guy who took up arms against the American government and got the death penalty. They're singing a song about him as they go into marching into battle. And that's a bit of a problem. So what do? So they hired somebody and they wrote, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. And so that's how we got the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And later, then the labor movement turned it into, what is it? When the Union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, we can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the Union makes us strong, right? And that song is really, really, really important, because it's really important in light of AI, right? It's really, really important in light of AI and in light of what we're talking about. So one of the last verses of the song, it's not the last verse, it's one of the last verses of the song is, it is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. But now we stand outcast and starving amid the wonders we have made. Now, what is that about? It's about working class people built the world, but the capitalist is constantly making technology more and more efficient. And the role of the worker at the assembly line is constantly decreasing. And the abundance in society, the wonders that we have made is growing. We should be living in the most prosperous world that has ever existed right now. We can make food, we can grow food more efficiently than ever before. We can make cars and iPads and trains, and we can do anything. And all this technology should be great. But because all the technology is operated for profit, for the small group of billionaires and bankers to enrich themselves, we built this world of wonders. And with our human creativity, we've advanced technology, and we've revolutionized our ability to create abundance. But that abundance is creating poverty. And we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made. So we have no choice but to take control of our government and have a government that organizes the economy rationally to serve the people and to serve public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. It is urgent because there's so much wealth and there's so much wonder and abundance in the world today. But yet There's so much poverty, and we stand outcast and starving amid the wonders that we have made. That's the problem. That is the problem. And ultimately, it points to the fact that we cannot have a society where profits are in command. Yes, we need small businesses. Yes, yes, restaurants and hotels, and people should be able to have their own idea, but we need a government of action that controls the economy and makes sure growth is unlimited. And we need a government that invests in people and in human creativity, that makes our kids smarter. A government that develops a social media app that makes our kids smarter and more intelligent and more physically fit and more confident, not Facebook and Twitter that makes the kids want to kill themselves and use drugs, right? We need a government that looks at every child that is born as a source of great wealth, as an investment, and invests in them because they could create a great innovation to make our society wealthier. That's what we need. We need a government of action to fight for working families. And the only way we're going to get that is if we build a mass movement, if we do what Charles G. Finney did, if we do what John Brown did, and if we reject what Luigi Mangione did. We need a government of action that will fight for working families. We need to have many wonders and signs carried out and be all together. We need to continue daily in one accord, breaking bread from house to house and eating meat together and praising God and having favor with the people and adding to our number daily. People joining us because they can feel the energy that we possess. That is what we urgently need in this country right now. We need a mass movement, not a movement based on hate and resentment, but a movement based on love and creativity and celebrating the creative ability and the unique intelligence of human beings. And that movement is called innovationism. And the organization that is striving to build such a movement and is dedicated to building that movement is called the Center for Political Innovation. And you should join us. Dare to struggle, dare to win. And I am going to say good night. I am signing off here, folks. Dare to struggle, dare to win. We have got a lot of work to do before July and August. So thanks for tuning in tonight. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.